And good evening. Here I am. What's up? Let me get a few things set up. Hi, UGDPY. How are you? I've been running around all day, so I haven't had time to eat, so I'm making some pasta at the moment, and I'll eat that while we're watching the JD Vance speech, which I need to find and open a tab for. Let's see, boom. New window. Let's close a few tabs here, otherwise my computer is going to give me another blue screen of death. There we go. That should help. Exhausted, been doing work on my house all weekend. I wish I had time to do work on my house. This space here is like basically I take all the mess out of here and I push it 2 meters that way. Like if it's past the shelf over there, it's not in frame, so it's good. That's my housekeeping at the moment. Let's see. JD Vance, it's a Munich security conference, right? JD Vance Munich speech. Is this the whole speech? No, it's a discussion of the speech. Okay, I found it on the official White House page. So yeah, we'll watch that in a minute. Right now, no one's on yet, so we'll just wait a little bit longer before we get started. And I guess I'll wait until my pasta is ready in 6 minutes. Wait. Hi, Citrus Boy. Hello, Tryon. Okay, yeah, we'll have Tryon on first, and then we'll do the Vance thing, or maybe do the Vance thing first and then do Tryon. I don't know. Let's do the Vance thing first. Man, have you seen this? I have no idea what this game is, but it looks kind of wacky and fun. I shared it. I think I shared it in memes. Yeah, this thing. Wait, no.
Okay, cool.
Close, copy link.
Okay, cool.
Open this. So yeah, this, it's gonna be a pain in the ass. Wait, let me.
What's up, legends?
So apparently it's a thing where you take like photos of, you have like this population acting and you take photos and you show stuff on the media, you frame stuff on the media, and what you frame affects how the people behave.
Hey, these guys look cute. What are they doing? Gross. Go get her. Well, I look a little bit embarrassed, but that's fine. Okay, what if we put... Oh, this guy looks dangerous. That didn't count. You gotta catch him doing something interesting. That was interesting. How was that not interesting? What's that cricket doing? Why did I miss the cricket? I don't know. Damn it! Just missed it! You suck. Alright, do it again. What if I get the cricket? Does the cricket do anything? Oh, come on! Are you telling me that is not a thing?
Anyway, it looks fun. I'll probably play this on stream at some point. Saw this game about 2-3 years ago. I did not know it existed until 2-3 hours ago. When did I post this on Discord? Yesterday? Today at midnight. Hey, Yakko, how are you? Okay, 2 minutes and 30 seconds, then I get my pasta, and then we go for JD Vance. Let me just fast forward this to the start of the speech.
Mr.
There we go. Okay. I'm still really tired. I haven't recovered from basically the all-nighter that I did to finish the video. I talked about how I worked until 5:30 a.m. to finish the video, right? And like worked until 5:30 a.m., then took a 2-hour nap and then started working again at like 8 or something. It was pretty brutal. And now I basically have to start again with another video that I need to finish in the next week. So that's going to be fun. But hey, for once I actually got something done. I actually started a video and finished it, which is new, which is unheard of in the last 6 months when we're talking about full-on YouTube, like actual YouTube videos and not shorts that I can do and, you know, that I can bang out in one morning. Okay, let me go get that pasta. I will be right back. No audio. Okay. Ars the Devil, how are you? Hey, Yako, has your post on r/conservatives gone well? Or did it not get any comments or something? Let's see. So, should we watch maybe von der Leyen's speech before JD Vance was important as context? Yeah, I think so. Let's do that. Let's do both. Ooh, why did no one tell me Yucko is out here to cause chaos? Well, I mean, he did tell everyone on Discord. I'm in a train with the train Wi-Fi right now. Whoa, wait. Remind me which country you're from, because if your train Wi-Fi is good enough to watch a stream, that is kind of impressive as far as I'm concerned. Like in my experience of train Wi-Fis, that is some good train Wi-Fi. Okay. This, and let's go first with a Ursula von der Leyen, head of the European Commission. Is that correct? I never get my my European institutions correct. I'm pretty sure she's the head of the European Commission. Ice from Berlin to Frankfurt. Well, that's I guess, I guess not all ice Wi-Fi is the same, because yeah, my ice experience wasn't always great. Von der Leyen. Yeah, European Commission. I was correct. Okay, so let's start with this speech and see after that. After this is the Vance speech, and that's where things get crazy, but maybe this is important context.
Herr Bundespräsident Steinmeier, Ministerpräsident Söder, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, can we lower a little bit this piece here, or is that impossible? It seems impossible. Okay. Like many of you, I've been coming here for many, many years, and I see many familiar faces. I've been coming here from the times when it was an exclusively transatlantic audience, to today when we see
I did not. I thought it was gonna. I'm too much into progressive politics that I didn't expect her to say transatlantic. I thought it was gonna be trans-inclusionary or something like that. I don't know.
political, business, and thought leaders from right across the world. This is a testament not only to the great success of the Munich Security Conference, but it also reflects on how the rest of the world impacts our security and our transatlantic relationship. Our task here in Munich is not just to describe this year's geopolitical landscape, but to shape it. And shape it in a way that ensures that our transatlantic values endure and our interests are defended. Because there is a clear attempt by some to build spheres of influence. Competing visions of the world order are leading to a more transactional approach in global affairs. And Europe has to change to thrive in this new reality. We have to be smart. We have to be clear-eyed about what is ahead of us. From a rogue Russia on our borders to challenges to our sovereignty and our security. And we should not underestimate the disruptive potential of intense competition or even a bipolar conflict between China and the United States. This may be uncomfortable to hear, but this is a time for plain speaking. The good news is that...
Yeah, considering the current global politics, and since next week is German election, I wonder which German chancellor is best suited to be strong for Europe on a global stage. That is, I guess that is a good question. I don't even have a good answer for that. Because honestly, Schultz has been... Like, you can defend his domestic policy. His foreign policy has been incredibly weak and incredibly always reacting very slowly and way too late to anything, if he reacts at all. Because his reaction to like, for example, Gaza is basically like steady course, not changing anything whatsoever, not questioning anything. There was an interview that he did on a podcast where, for once, someone actually asked him, hey, what is Germany's reaction going to be if the ICJ finds that what's happening in Gaza is a genocide? Like, What do you think Germany should take from that, and what kind of what lesson, like what will that mean historically, which is like the question that everyone has, and he just refused to answer. He was like he repeated multiple times the same canned, I would not assume that would be the case. And when he was pressed on it, eventually he was just like, well, you know, that's a hypothetical. I'm not going to consider a hypothetical, and I disagree with any conclusion that it's a genocide, so I'm not even going to consider what would happen if the ICJ finds that it is. And that's it. Like, he just, like, it shouldn't be this hard of a conversation to have. Is there a single good German politician? I'm really amazed by how, in terms of parties, it's frustrating because Volt is basically non-existent. They have like 0.5. They're not going to have representation in the parliament anytime soon, maybe in our lifetime. But Volt is pretty good in general on policies. It's just like they're too small. SPD is very weak. They're probably closest aligned to my positions, but they're just extremely weak. Die Linke has been better since Sarah Wagenknecht left the party, and they are gaining traction in the polls, so that's good. But if the question is about foreign policy, I don't even know what much of their... Like, I'm not sure if they would be great on... Like, Sarah Wagenknecht would be super bad on Ukraine and on Russia-Ukraine. I'm not sure if Die Linke is like... They're probably better than Sarah Wagenknecht, but not by that much. So, yeah, no. The political offering in Germany is very underwhelming, which is like... That's basically the case in most of Europe, which is probably a big reason why the far right is on the rise worldwide, is just mostly, in my opinion, due to a severe lack of talent in left-wing politicians. And it like that should, like, that's pretty obvious when you think about it. The objectively obviously terrible parties are gaining traction because there's no one else to vote for. That's the main thing, and that's the frustrating thing. Volt, main candidate for Germany, had a really, really bad interview last week on a popular podcast. I haven't seen it. Maybe we can have a look if we have time. Anyway, back to this.
As we approach this new year of change, Europe is already reforming. The pandemic, the war in Ukraine, the full-scale energy crisis have been brutal times for all of us. But in Europe, they showed us also that when we adopt an urgency mentality, we are a force that can move mountains. From the life-saving vaccines, to the unwavering support to Ukraine, or mastering the energy crisis. Europe has shown that it can meet the moment, and we must adopt this urgency mentality more permanently. And this is why what you've seen in the first 100 days of the new...
Honest, must adopt this urgency mentality at all. Like, you haven't adopted an urgency mentality. The support for Ukraine has been, like, okay, but insufficient. There needs to be more. You need to... I'm always frustrated because I'm a big fan of the EU, but, like, do more. Like, grow some balls and actually do stuff. Actually assert a leading position on the global stage. Actually get stuff done. Like, actually do it. It's so frustrating to see, like, a fascist come into power, and all of a sudden they're able to do more to destroy democracy in a month. Not even a month. It hasn't even been a month. What the fuck? It'll be a month in 5 days. More to destroy democracy in less than a month than the EU has done in, what, 30... Maybe not, like, they've done a lot of good things, but, like, in the last 10 years of working to, like, you know, strengthen democracy that is crumbling around the world. Like, no, actually grow some balls and do stuff. Thank you, Stitch. I vote for the libs here in Bulgaria, partially of sheer desperation, yeah.
Commission is the tone and the speed I intend to set for the whole mandate. We're strengthening our competitiveness. We're stepping up on defense. We're enabling innovation for AI. Action is what really matters in this new reality. And we know a stronger Europe is better for all of us. A stronger Europe works with the United States to deter the threats we have in common as partners. And this is why we believe
a stronger Europe works with the United States to deter the threats that we have in common. Except there's a poll that came out at the Munich Security Conference or during the Munich Security Conference, which is where she's speaking right now, that a bunch of let me find that poll instead of just remembering vaguely what it was. I don't have space on my desk. I hope I don't drop my pasta. Give me a sec. No, it wasn't this. Okay, what I'm getting is Vance's speech, so I need to go back to before his speech. This was on February 14th, so I need to go to February 13th. Tools, custom range, boom. 13, no. Go. If anyone knows which report or poll I'm thinking of, was about the U.S. being the biggest threat in the world right now. U.S. biggest threat. I think it's this. Trump's proposed land grabs mean U.S. now seen as a risk, says Munich Security Conference. Report published before the international summit suggests U.S. is moving away from a global leadership role, which is also what they said last time Trump was in office. The report... I'm actually kind of sad about what Trump has been able to achieve and how irrelevant it is for the German election. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like when Brexit happened, pretty much immediately after Brexit, a bunch of people... I love your intro screen. Thank you. Pretty much immediately after Brexit, a bunch of people... The polls swung in other countries that were considering doing a Brexit, like considering leaving the EU. The polls swung wildly in the other direction as a response to Brexit. And you would think that electing a far-right president in the US and seeing like how disastrous for democracy his first 2 weeks in office have been would wildly swing the poll in the other direction, the polls in the other direction. Like you would expect that to be the case, but apparently not. Like you would expect that seeing the most influential person in the Trump administration after Trump, arguably not even after Trump, arguably the most influential person in the Trump administration, more so than Trump, doing a Nazi salute on stage on Inauguration Day would, in Germany, swing the polls in the opposite direction. You would expect that to happen, but apparently not. So, yeah. United States MAGA Carta. Nice, nice. Page 55. $27. 53. Okay. Why has the post-Cold War consensus on U.S. foreign policy broken down? What is the Trump administration's vision for the international order? Trump administration, I can answer that question. The Trump administration's vision for the international order is MAGA and America first, and they don't care about anything else. That is it. It took the Nazis 53 days to dismantle democracy. This is 2025. Does Moore's law apply? Good question. Anyway, so wait. The summary here was done for a reason so that we don't have to redo their work. Trump's proposed lands grab mean the U.S. is no longer perceived as an anchor for stability, but rather a risk to be hedged against, the organizers of the Munich Security Conference have said in a pre-summit report. The report, which takes as its theme the shift from a U.S.-led to unipolar post-Cold War era towards a multipolar world in which no single ideological outlook dominates. Well, yeah, I guess you could say that. Will form, because right now there's like a rise in fascism as a ideological outlook, not just from the US, but from, Russia, Hungary, China. Arguably, they have like this weird palingenetic ultranationalism thing going on as well. That's been the case for a long time. Will form in the backdrop of this year's conference. Seriously, people in the US seems to be all for, at least they are doing something. Clearly, well, they're going to be all for that until the consequences of what they're doing start to come home. Like right now, any negative things happening in the US, they can blame on, well, that, we got that, we inherited that from the Biden admin, and so it's not our fault. But when schools start to get defunded, when banks start to screw people over and they don't have the CFPB to fall back on, when plenty of other things start to happen, that's when there's going to be real consequences for the Trump admin. And like it's starting to have consequences for individual people, but like there's families that are already broken by that when they're like mixed immigration status families where like one of them is undocumented and the others aren't, and so you have like the mom is arrested and taken away and deported, and the others the others just find themselves without a mom in the family. That is already happening, but that's like individual things that are happening here and there. When it starts to become like a society-wide problem, all of these things happen, like really the consequences growing and reaching a boiling point, that's when it's going to start to be a problem. But by then it might be too late for any any reaction to have an effect. Since his inauguration, the U.S. president has mooted acquiring, I don't know this word in this context, I guess has hinted at acquiring land for the U.S. in Greenland and Panama and Canada and Gaza, by the way. The signal from Washington increasingly indicate that the U.S. no longer wants to be the guardian of the liberal international order, but it is far from clear which other countries may be willing and able to provide much needed global public goods. The report's author suggests a U.S. withdrawal from the global leadership role has implications beyond issues. I mean, they're not withdrawing from the global leadership role. They're just leading they're doing the global leadership in the direction of fascism, in the direction of, hey, it's okay if all individual countries become fascist countries and do their own thing, Which I guess it's like, is withdrawing from the global leadership role in a way, but like you can argue it both ways. Like they are leading the globe in the direction of every country doing a might equals what right approach to how they lead their own country, rather than for better or worse what it was before, which is like US kind of enforcing what other countries could do. In a lot of cases that was like in a lot of cases, their interest was to have democratic countries. In other cases, their interest was to have stable dictatorships. There's a really good book that I have called The Despot's Accomplice, sorry, that examines that, when it's convenient for the U.S. to support democracy and a democratic leader, they absolutely do that. But when it's convenient for them to support a dictatorship like, say, Saudi Arabia for strategic reasons, they give no shit whatsoever if it's a democracy or not. And when it's convenient for them to overthrow democracy, they'll do that too. But yeah, for Europe, for the most part, it has meant that the U.S. support has been a good thing. That's not something that can be said for necessarily the rest of the world. And especially now without USAID, that is like unironically one of the only good things that they did over the years. The authors also say the US president's effort to assert a new form of US primary. I don't like how this article is written, honestly. It's written very in a very weird way. The US president's effort to assert a new form of primacy, maybe that was supposed to be. A new form of US primary will be undermined by the multiple polarization trend. The report includes a survey data showing the trend is more likely to be welcomed as a force for good in countries such as Brazil, India, South Africa, and China, the BRICS. The conference, which opens on Friday, is seen as blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's go back to the speech. Am I missing something important from chat? I have a friend in CA being Canada, maybe? Wait, no, CA is a state. CA state. California, my bad. I have a friend in California with 2 autistic children. She is already feeling the effects in terms of cost for special programs, also in terms of attitude towards. Yeah, no, that's the thing. The attitude thing is a big thing. Is I think they call this a permission structure, when the government makes it okay to be a dick to people that are, either minorities or disabled or any kind of, trans, gay, like, whether it's racial minorities or sexual minorities or any of that. When the government basically declares that okay to discriminate against those people, you see a lot of people who like never saw it as a problem. All of a sudden, they don't give a shit about not being dicks. They'll be like, well, it's okay now. We can be dicks all we want, so we get to do that. And that is definitely something that we're gonna see with the attitude that people have. It's kind of like when after a far right party that claims to be like for democracy and against violence and whatever wins an election, what you'll see very often in the days that follow that is a huge spike in hate crimes against minorities, because they're like, hey, our party won. That means that we're back in power. We can do shit. Even though the party officially doesn't condone that. Bro, did they kick Russia out of BRICS? I don't think so. But I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure Russia would also be included in this list. They just didn't mention it, but yeah. Back to my pasta while we watch this again.
That trade wars and punitive tariffs make no sense. Tariffs act like a tax. They drive inflation. The hardest hit are inevitably workers, companies, the small income, the middle classes on both sides of the Atlantic. And we know how quickly tariffs can affect essential transatlantic supply chains. We do not believe that this is good business, and we want to avoid a global race to the bottom. But as I've already made clear, unjustified tariffs on the European Union will not go unanswered. And let me speak plainly. We are one of the world's largest markets. We will use our tools to safeguard our economic security and interests. And
I mean, yeah, but who is? I mean, even sorry, responding to Yako right now. I have to say von der Leyen isn't that good of a public speaker. Even like, Trump is a shitty public speaker. I think Vance is pretty good. But yeah, no, I mean, and especially if we're talking about like European leaders who English isn't their first language in a lot of cases, It's pretty rare to have like really charismatic European leaders. What was I gonna say? Yeah, it's gonna be really funny when the EU answers, if they again grow some balls and actually do something about the Trump tariffs. When the EU answers to Trump's tariff with other tariffs, kind of like what happened with Mexico and Canada, Trump is gonna be like, "Oh my God, how are they putting tariffs on what?" But that wasn't part of the deal. We get to put tariffs, but they can't put tariffs back on us. That's not fair. Yeah, that's gonna be their immediate reaction. They're gonna be like outraged at the idea that it's gonna become like a trade war, which is what it's gonna be. There's gonna be retaliations to that.
We will protect our workers, our businesses and consumers at every turn. Of course, we're ready to find agreements that work for all, to work together to make each other more prosperous and more secure. Ladies and gentlemen, at the heart of this is, of course, defense and the security of Ukraine, of our continent, and of the wider world. In this room, we all feel it, what's at stake. This is a moment in history. Great challenges loom. There has been a lot of talk in the last few days, but it is always instructive to look beyond the words and to recognize that we are just at the beginning of this process. Let's take stock of the starting positions. Contrast the approach taken by President Zelensky and that of President Putin. In the most difficult of circumstances, President Zelensky is prepared to work towards a peace that honors the sacrifice of his country and his fallen compatriots. As Volodymyr Zelensky said from the start, Ukraine wants peace more than anyone else, one that is just and lasting, so that the horrors of the last 3 years are not revisited ever again. On the other hand, President Putin says he's willing to meet, but on what terms? It is up to him to demonstrate that his interest is not to prolong this war. It is up to him to show that he has given up his ambition to destroy Ukraine. And let me be very clear. A failed Ukraine would weaken Europe, but it would also weaken the United States. It would intensify the challenges in the Indo-Pacific and threaten our shared interests. Because what we have seen is the authoritarians of this world are carefully watching whether there's any impunity if you invade your neighbor and violate international borders, or whether there are real deterrents. They are watching us.
I mean, but we need to start calling a spade a spade. Trump is one of the authoritarians of the world. Like, you can't say this as a way to appeal to the US.
Intensify challenges in the Indo-Pacific and threaten our shared interests. Because what we have seen is the authoritarians of this world are carefully watching whether there's any impunity if you invade your neighbor and violate international borders, or whether there are real deterrents.
I mean, Trump is literally threatening to invade their neighbors and violate their borders. Trump is one of the authoritarians of the world. And yes, of course there's going to be impunity. Like, if she's calling for, like, the US to enforce consequences for that, the US is on the side of the authoritarians now. Unless, it remains to be seen how the US would respond to, for example, China invading Taiwan. Because there are a lot of strategic interests for the US in Taiwan. But other than specifically those strategic interests, the US doesn't give a shit if China invades Taiwan. If the Russian invasion were to happen today, the Ukraine invasion were to happen today, the US would let it happen because they don't really care about Ukraine. Or, like, at least the Trump admin doesn't. They don't have a commitment to any kind of global stability. They don't give a shit.
They are watching us very carefully, what actions we choose to take. And this is why it is so important that we get this right. Ukraine needs peace through strength. Europe wants peace through strength. And President Trump has made clear the United States is firmly committed to peace through strength. So I believe that by working together, we can deliver that just and lasting peace. And there's a lot that
And that peace through strength thing, that is the Trump slogan for how he views his foreign policy, which is why they left the UN Human Rights Council, which is why they left, they dismantled USAID. It's like, we're not going to do soft power anymore. We're not going to do diplomacy. We're just going to have the biggest stick, and we're going to enforce whatever we want the world to do through strength, you know, and through tariffs and through threats of military action and threats of annexation and stuff like that. I think it's interesting to use that as a piece of rhetoric to try to convince the US to do stuff, to use that strength to help democracy. But it's obviously not going to, like, that's not going to work, because even in the negotiations that are happening between the US, Russia, and trying, like, they're kind of more or less involving Ukraine, but not really, because Ukraine was like, hey, we would like to get the territory that was invaded back. And the US is like, oh my God, that's so unrealistic. And they don't give a shit about Ukraine and the territory that was taken and all of that. The US could do the peace through strength, and we're going to impose that Russia leave the territory that it has invaded, and that it gets pushed back into its own internationally recognized borders. If they were doing the peace through strength thing, and if they were doing the we can actually get stuff done, and we can actually impose our will as the biggest country in the world, they could, but they don't give a shit, because they're fascists and they are on the side of fascism.
Europe already has brought to the table historic amounts.
Wait, have I been speaking on mute for the last 10 minutes? For the last 5 minutes? God damn it. Wait, was I in mute right now for the entire speech that I was making? Because I thought Harris was responding to my comments about Ukraine. Okay, cool.
Actually, financially and militarily, the overall support amounts to 134 billion euros. That is an equivalent of $140 billion. That is more than anybody else has contributed. This includes $52 billion of military assistance, on par with the United States. We have put in place hard-hitting sanctions, substantially weakening Russia's economy. We have broken one taboo after another and smashed our reliance on Russian gas, making us more resilient permanently. And we are about to do more. We are working with Ukraine on their EU accession, because Ukraine is part of our European family, and this is where their future lies, here in Europe.
So apparently, part of the Russian negotiations with the US is that the US will block any Ukrainian ambitions to join NATO. I wonder, because it would be good as, you know, kind of a consolation prize that the EU accelerates Ukraine's bid to join the EU. I wonder if Trump would do anything about that. If Trump would, like, force the EU to back down on that and force the EU to not accept Ukraine into the EU. That's something to keep our eye on, I guess, because so far the solution that is being agreed on between the US and Russia that Ukraine disagrees on, but they're not going to have much of a choice, to be honest, unless support by the EU, like, massively goes up in the next few months. That is exactly the solution that I expected, which is just Russia gets to keep everything they took, and they get to declare victory on everything, and the only thing that they don't, and Ukraine doesn't get to join the NATO. The only thing that Russia were trying to do initially when they started the invasion and weren't able to do was take over the entire country. But for them, the fact that they basically took a third of the country is already enough for them to declare a victory on that. It's going to be a huge victory parade in Moscow if that happens.
And ladies and gentlemen, this leads me to the discussions we have had in Europe over the course of the last few weeks. Many in the security circles in Europe were confused, some even worried, by the comments made by senior US official earlier this week. But we need to be honest here, and we need to avoid outrage and outcry, because if we listen to the substance of the remarks, we not only understand where they are coming from, but recognize there are some remarks we can agree on. Because yes, both the United States and the European Union want an end to the bloodshed. We want a just and lasting peace, one that leads to a sovereign and prosperous Ukraine. And Ukraine should be given solid security guarantees. But perhaps what resonates with me the most is the need for Europe not only to speak frankly, but also to act accordingly. So let there be no room for any doubt. I believe when it comes to European security, Europe has to do more. Europe must bring more to the table. And to achieve this, we need a surge in European defense spending. Currently, the EU27 are spending around 2% of GDP on defense. And yes, our defense spending went up from just over 200 billion before the war to now over 320 billion last year. But we will need to increase that number considerably once again, because from just below 2% to above 3% will mean hundreds of billions of euro of more investment every year. So we need a bold approach. Let's take one step back. In previous extraordinary crises, look at what we did. We empowered member states with extra fiscal room by activating the escape clause. In simple terms, we empowered member states to substantially increase public investments linked to the crisis. I believe we are now in another period of crisis which warrants a similar approach. And this is why I can announce that I will propose to activate the escape clause for defense investments. This will allow member states to substantially increase their defense expenditure. Of course, we will have to do this in a controlled and conditional way. And I will also propose a wider package of tailor-made tools to address the specific situation of each and every one of our member states, from their current levels of defense spending to their fiscal situation. Second, for a massive defense package, we also need a European approach in setting our investment priorities. This will allow the investments in much-needed defense projects of common European interest. And thirdly, we will step up our work to accelerate the accession process of Ukraine to the European Union. We have made significant progress already, but again, now...
Or is the devil saying, because of Orban, Russia does not need the USA to stop the EU from bringing the Ukraine into the EU? That's true. Do they have a veto power? Is it like one country can veto? I guess it is, yeah. I guess that was the case for... Yeah. Which is very true. It would be nice. It would be nice if both NATO and the EU had realized when they created their organizations that one day the political alignments of all the countries involved would not stay aligned. And because of that, they needed to include a mechanism in their system to kick countries out when they when they're not, working in the right direction anymore. Like Turkey, there's no reason for Turkey to be in fucking NATO anymore. They've done nothing but work against NATO and for Russia in the last few years, in the last many years under Erdogan. Hungary, should they be kicked out of NATO? I don't know if it would be that far, but like not of NATO, although arguably NATO too, but of the EU. I don't know if we should go that far, but definitely like the EU has sanctioned Hungary over some of their anti-democratic practices, and like we should continue to do more. Like we should, like, if Hungary were to leave the EU, they would be so fucked, and yet they're constantly undermining the EU. It's hilarious how hypocritical they are in that. Hello, completely forgot the stream was happening. No worries. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, no, it's frustrating. And the other thing, like, it's good that she's calling for a continued increase in military spending. Not that I want war to happen, but we need to really, and we're going to see this with Vance's speech as well, we need to really accept the fact that right now, and I don't want to freak everyone out, but it feels like we're in the in the setup stages for World War III. And I think probably if we survive World War III, the history books will probably put, I guess, the Ukraine invasion as the starting point although it took a couple of years or more. We'll see how long it takes from here. But we're seeing, we talked about on stream a few months ago, the attacks that are happening on infrastructure between Finland and the Baltic states. There's I'm researching right now for a video that's going to be in a few months, a bunch of other either like physical attacks on European infrastructure by Russian agents all over the EU, and or just like psyops and under like trying to create social division with actual physical operations that are being held of like either manipulating protests or framing, like doing crimes and framing protesters for those crimes to turn people against those protesters and stuff like that. It's really scary stuff, and we're in the early stages of that with Russia doing it, and now with the US going in the direction of not giving a shit about holding Russia accountable. If Russia can step that up without being afraid of the US, that is going to get worse a lot faster. And the good news is that Russia, as the war in Ukraine has shown, is much weaker militarily than we initially thought. We thought the Ukraine invasion would happen a lot faster, would be over a lot faster, and it wasn't. Update on the Baltic Sea. The Finnish courts couldn't prove that the Eagle S ship was used to sabotage the pipe. It's too big of a coincidence for me to believe that. The fact that it couldn't be proven in court is like fine, but it's too big of a coincidence for me to believe that it was like purely an accident and had nothing to do with any kind of sabotage. But I'll be looking into it more for sure. But yeah, no, we need to accept that if we can avoid World War III, that would be a good thing, but we need to be prepared for it. We need to start stockpiling on weapons. We need to start, like, as citizens, probably a good thing to have like a bug out bag, and probably a good thing to have enough, canned food and resources so that you can bunker down at home. If you're in the EU and you and you're in a situation where like it would be unsafe to be on the roads. Not saying that it's going to happen tomorrow, but in the next 4 years, I have no idea where we're going to be in 2028. Like, I genuinely do not know. And I don't think anyone who's telling you they know where we're going to be knows what the fuck they're talking about, because that's how volatile the situation is right now. Nah, nothing will happen. You're being sarcastic, right? Let me get tissue paper. There's a guy, I don't remember his name. It was Mo something, who shows up on stream every once in a while. And when we were doing it was on the night of Trump's victory, or was right before. And he was like, nah, you guys are exaggerating. Trump's not a fascist. It's not going to be that bad. And part of the reason why that guy was saying that he supported Trump is because of how bad Democrats have been on the issue of Israel-Palestine. I haven't seen him show up in stream since, but I would like to ask him what he thinks of Trump's open admission that he wants to do ethnic cleansing in Palestine, if that has changed his position on whether Trump is a fascist or not, in addition to all of the other openly fascistic things that have been happening in the US since then. It's going to get worse, but I don't want to doom. I mean, I'm not trying to doom. We survived World War I and II. It was bad, but, it wasn't the end of the world. The world didn't end, and I don't think the world is going to end for us either. But we really do need to be prepared for shit to go bad, because I think someone was telling me, I don't know if this is true, that at the moment Germany has enough ammunition, fuel, and all of that for 3 days if war broke out. And 3 days is not enough. Germany should have more. We should have some level of preparation so that, especially considering how much power the US has in Europe, like how many military bases the US has in Europe, if they wanted to fuck us up, they could do that overnight, and we need to start taking steps to prevent that. We need to start taking steps. We need to, like, maybe as long as Trump is president, Trump wanted to start withdrawing troops from European military bases. Maybe let's let him do that. Maybe let's encourage that, because when Trump is threatening to invade Greenland, France and Denmark have started to muse about, had started to think about sending troops to Greenland to defend the territory. It's not impossible that the EU is going to be at war with the US in the next few years. Again, I don't want to doom. I don't think we should doom. But in the same way that, you should have, like, you shouldn't wait for a hurricane to be announced before having what you need at home to be able to, like, survive the hurricane. Either a plan to get out of the region where the hurricane is going to hit, or just enough resources and enough to barricade yourself in. Like, having, like, bottled water in your home and some canned food and enough to survive until rescuers get there in case of a hurricane or an earthquake or a tornado or whatever. Having a bunker for a tornado, a shelter for a tornado, is not being a doomer. It's just, being prepared against in case shit hits the fan. And obviously, you don't need to be prepared for a tornado in places that never get hit by tornadoes. But if you're in, like, Tornado Valley or tornado, whatever it's called, corridor in the US, you should. We are in, pre-war. It looks like we're in pre-war times, and maybe it's not going to happen, and I'm going to be completely wrong. And if that's the case, I will be the first one to be happy about that. I don't want that to happen. I just think it would be a good idea for individuals to have, like, to start considering what they would do in that case. And I'll read that in a second. For individuals to start considering what they would do if that's the case, and for countries to actually start to be prepared for that. YouTube keeps deleting my comment for Aris the Devil on your nukes comment. The nukes will never be the opening move, and countries have been figuring out how to counter nukes for 60 years. Yeah, no, I agree. Nukes will not be the opening moves. Nukes will only be used as a last measure of desperation by countries that are about to lose. And what we've been seeing in terms of how nukes have been conceived of as a thing to use, actually nukes, so obviously Hiroshima and Nagasaki happened. Those were big nukes, and then we made even bigger nukes. But eventually it reached a peak. I think it was the Tsar Bomba was the biggest nuke ever used. And then nukes started to get smaller. And now we talk about tactical nukes, or nukes that are just, I don't even think tactical nukes would destroy an entire city. It's more like, the kind of nukes that you use in StarCraft to destroy, like, part of a battlefield. It's just a really big bomb now. And modern nukes also don't have the same issue of nuclear fallout and radiation that old nukes did. They're just big explosions, and those explosions, like, the idea of destroying an entire city with a big bomb is something that has been considered as less of a thing that people wanted to do. So nukes that are, like, could potentially be used realistically would probably be tactical nukes, which would still be bad, but and it would still, like, be a significant step in the evolution of warfare, but it wouldn't be the kind of world-ending, cascading disaster of everyone launching nukes at everyone and, like, the entire world blowing up the way that we've conceived of, like, mutually assured destruction for a while. I hope nukes don't get used, but if they do get used, they're probably just going to be a big bomb that blows up somewhere, and it's hopefully not going to be more disastrous than that. But again, yes, we do need to be careful about it. We do need to be prepared for anything. I just think that with the level of appeasement, what will stop Putin from doing a move on the Caucasus now? On the Caucasus, probably nothing. Or in Georgia, probably nothing. Poland has a pretty big stake. Like, Poland has a bigger military than Ukraine, or at least than Ukraine did before the invasion. So if they wanted to move further into Europe, they would have to deal with Poland, and that would probably matter more. And I think Germany would get way more, and the rest of the EU would get way more involved with Poland, that is an EU member, than they did with Ukraine. Finland would be a pain in the ass to invade because it's so fucking freezing up there. Thank you for the new subscriber. And also EU member, and Poland is a NATO member as well. Finland is now a NATO member. Were they a NATO? I think they're a recent NATO member. Yeah, so but again, NATO barely matters anymore. If the US doesn't give a shit about NATO anymore, it's an open question whether being a NATO member gives you the same protection as it did before. It definitely, like, it will still get a response from European members of NATO, but if the US doesn't give a shit about NATO anymore, if they're not going to respond to Russia invading a NATO member, which is possible, I think the EU would maybe be a bigger, more important political bloc than NATO if Trump basically... I don't think the US is going to leave NATO, but if they basically stop caring about NATO, NATO basically dissolves. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I don't even know why I didn't mention them, because that's very obviously the case. Caucasus are probably, yes, could probably be invaded by Russia. Probably no one's going to do anything about it. Georgia as well. Finland, probably not. Poland, probably not. I think the thing to keep an eye on, for the thing that could be really the next real escalation that will get a response from Russia, will be Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania.
Now is the time to move mountains in the European Union. Increase the spending possibility of the national budgets, have common European funding for projects of common European interest, and accelerate the accession process of Ukraine. This must be the goal of the new Europe.
EMTA, I like it. European Military Treaty Agreement, potential name for a new org after NATO dies. I agree with that. Let's go with that. EMTA. Let's make it a thing.
That is working for these goals intensively. My message is, you see Europe adapting, you see Europe stepping up, you see Europe making a difference immediately. Ladies and gentlemen, what is being discussed here today is ultimately about us, our prosperity, our economy, our security, our ability to make good on Europe's enduring promise of peace. Our values do not change. They are universal. But because the world is changing, we have to adapt the way we act. We need a Europe that is more pragmatic, more focused, more determined, one that will counter its threats, one that will leverage its enormous strength and power.
Invasion of the Baltic states would have to be almost an invasion of Finland, since we would block the access to the Baltic Sea. Possibly, I mean, we'll have to see what that. Well, hopefully, we don't have to see what shape that takes, but it might. It would, for Putin, it would be easiest for Putin to conquer the Central Asian countries that were a part of the Soviet Union. Yes, but he doesn't need to, because those are still basically Russia aligned. There's still a bunch of Central Asian countries that are, they're not a part of the Soviet Union anymore, and they don't necessarily have a good memory of being part of the Soviet Union, but they're not in the American or European spheres of influence. They're not in the Chinese spheres of influence. They're basically, if they had to choose a camp, they would probably side with Russia. So they don't need to be invaded by Russia in the way that Ukraine was shifting towards the West, which is why Russia invaded. So yeah, that, I think that's less of a problem. Same thing with Georgia. Maybe that now that there is a pro-Russia leader in Georgia, Georgia doesn't, like, Russia doesn't really need to invade Georgia. Russia doesn't need to invade Belarus, because Belarus is basically a Russian franchise at this point. So, yeah.
And one that is standing by Ukraine and its partners. And there's a lot that this Europe can do, and it will rise to the moment. Thank you very much, and long live Europe.
Okay, let's go to the real speech, the real important speech. Mr. J.D. Vance.
Well, thank you, and thanks to all the gathered delegates and luminaries and media professionals, and thanks especially to the host of the Munich Security Conference for being able to put on such an incredible event. We're, of course, thrilled to be here. We're happy to be here. And, you know, one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is, of course, our shared values. And, you know, it's great to be back in Germany. As you heard earlier, I was here last year as United States Senator. I saw Foreign Secretary David Lammy, and joked that both of us last year had different jobs than we have now. But now it's time for all of our countries, for all of us who have been fortunate enough to be given political power by our respective peoples, to use it wisely to improve their lives. And I want to say that, you know, I was fortunate in my time here to spend some time outside the walls of this conference over the last 24 hours. And I've been so impressed by the hospitality.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm more surprised Trump even bothered sending Vance and not President Musk.
Of the people, even of course as they're reeling from yesterday's.
You know why he sent Vance and not Musk? Because Musk is actually busy doing shit in the US. He's busy dismantling the government. And Vance doesn't really have a job. Like, vice presidents famously don't really do anything. They only do symbolic stuff. They're only there for like photo ops and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, he was bored. He didn't have anything to do. And probably Trump didn't even think of sending him here. It was probably Vance who was like, hey, do you need me on Tuesday? Because I can go there instead, you know? I don't know if it was Tuesday, but whatever.
Horrendous attack. And the first time I was ever in Munich was with my wife, actually, who's here with me today, on a personal trip. And I've always loved the city of Munich, and I've always loved its people. And I just want to say that we're very moved, and our thoughts and prayers are with Munich and everybody affected by the evil inflicted on this beautiful community. We're thinking about you. We're praying for you. And we will.
Yeah, for context, earlier that day or the day before, there was a car ramming attack that hurt like 20 people, killed 2, I think, at this point. Apparently, the suspect is an Afghan asylum seeker, which is, yeah, not good. So that happening a few days before the election is going to be a huge boost for the AfD. Wonderful. It's almost like it was planned. But like, I'm not saying I believe it was planned. It's just very convenient.
Certainly be rooting for you in the days and weeks to come. Now, I hope that's not the last bit of applause that I get, but we gather at this conference, of course, to discuss security. And normally, we mean threats to our external security. I see many great military leaders gathered here today. But while the Trump administration is very concerned with European security and believes that we can come to a reasonable settlement between Russia and Ukraine, and we also believe that it's important in the
reasonable settlement being exactly what Russia has been asking for the past few years. Like, they're literally going to do all of the Russia wish lists and none of Ukraine's wish lists.
Coming years for Europe to step up in a big way to provide for its own defense. The threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe.
The threat from within being the term that Trump used to describe the Democrats in the U.S. as well. Interesting.
From some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America. Now, I was struck that a former European commissioner went on television recently and sounded delighted that the Romanian government had just annulled an entire election.
Seriously? So the election that was nearly stolen by Russia through a massive psyop and like huge amounts of resources that were spent on boosting this candidate who was a nobody before the election. And that is like concerning that, the Romania tried to defend its democracy against a foreign attack.
He warned that if things don't go to plan, the very same thing could happen in Germany too. Now, these cavalier statements are shocking to American ears. For years, we've been told that everything we fund and support is in the name of our shared democratic values. Everything from our Ukraine policy to digital censorship is billed as a defense of democracy. But when we see European courts canceling elections and senior officials threatening to cancel others, we ought to ask whether we're holding ourselves to an appropriately high standard. And
I mean, you can make the argument that we need just to make elections more secure, and we need to have more robust systems to prevent what basically happened in Romania. But I'm sorry, yeah, if your election was attacked, if your election integrity was compromised, and there is actually a like documented, proven foreign attack by a foreign country on your election, it is a completely valid thing to go like, hey, you know what? We're going to fix this and we need to do a redo because that's not okay. Obviously.
I say ourselves because I fundamentally believe that we are on the same team. We must do more than talk about democratic values. We must live them. Now, within living memory of many of you in this room, the Cold War positioned defenders of democracy against much more tyrannical forces on this continent. And consider
like the US
the
right
side
now
in that fight that censored dissidents, that closed churches, that canceled elections. Were they the good guys? Certainly not. And thank God they lost the Cold War. They lost because they neither valued...
Oh my God. He's not even talking about World War II. He's talking about the communists. He's not even like, am I crazy that is a weird thing to point out? Am I crazy that the fact that he's talking about the Cold War and not World War II is a really weird thing?
Nor respected all of the extraordinary blessings of liberty. The freedom to surprise, to make mistakes, to invent, to build. As it turns out, you can't mandate innovation or creativity, just as you can't force people what to think, what to feel, or what to believe. And we believe those things are certainly connected. And unfortunately, when I look at Europe today, it's sometimes not so clear what happened to some of the Cold War's winners. I look to Brussels, where EU commissars warn citizens that they intend to shut down social media during times of civil unrest the moment they spot what they've judged to be, quote, hateful content. Or to this very country, where police have...
Yeah, I'm sorry, you can't mandate innovation, bitch. How did y'all fly to the moon? That is one thing. I'm more so I don't know if I'm just seeing something that isn't there. Let me go back there. Let me Google something and then give me a sec. I need to mute this so I can have the right moment teed up. Damn it, what's the name of this guy? Give me a second. I'm almost there. Okay. So I don't know if I'm seeing something that isn't there. Maybe I'm just a little bit too plugged into these things, so I make connections that aren't necessarily the best.
Sometimes not so clear what happened, and we believe. Turns out you can't mandate mistakes to invent, to build things of liberty. The freedom to surprise, to make mistakes, to invent, to build. As it turns out, you can't mandate innovation.
That thing of like inventing and building stuff really reminds me of this speech by neo-Nazi Richard Spencer.
To be white is to be a striver, a crusader, an explorer, and a conqueror. We build, we produce, we go upward. And we recognize the central lie of American race relations.
And that's something that I see in a lot of neo-Nazi speeches. That the what was her name? Eva Vlandingerbroek, the Dutch, basically neo-Nazi, Nazi Barbie, I called her. We reacted to a speech of her a few months ago, and she made almost exactly the same point. Oh yeah, it's white Europeans, it's white Christian Europeans that build and invent and go upwards, you know. So this isn't formulated the same way. It might be completely like just me reading into this, but it sounds a little weird how close it was to me. Like, I don't know. You tell me if I'm crazy on that or not.
Or creativity, just as you can't force people what.
I don't think it's a dog whistle, just probably a coincidence. Yeah, very, very possibly that I'm over, like, that I'm making a connection that isn't really there. Are you talking about Eva Vlardingerbroek? Yeah, we saw a very similar comments by Eva Vlardingerbroek in the speech she made at CPAC Hungary a few months ago, a year ago, something like that.
To think, what to feel, or what to believe, and we believe those things are certainly connected. And unfortunately, when I look at Europe today, it's sometimes not so clear what happened to some of the Cold War's winners. I look to Brussels, where EU commissars warn citizens that they intend to shut down social media during times of civil unrest the moment they spot what they've judged to be, quote, hateful content. Or to this very country, where
wait, it's Eva Vlardingerbroek, not Vlandar Borek. Wait, is that a thing? Eva Vlandar. Yeah, that's not a thing, right? I mean, this person. Unpronounceable Dutch name, of course.
Police have carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet.
Wait, what's this thing?
Police have carried out raids, warned citizens that they intend to shut down social media during times of civil unrest the moment they spot what they've judged to be, quote, hateful content. Or to this very country, where police have carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet, a day of action.
I'd like to see more context about that. What is this story? German police raid anti-feminist social media. Is that a real thing? German police conducts raid against people suspecting of posting misogynistic hate speech online. What kind of misogynistic hate speech? So carried out raids against people suspected of posting hate speech in as part of a coordinated push to shine a spotlight on violence against women. Interrogated 45 suspects in 11 states early Thursday. None of the suspects were detained. Okay. Another 37 suspects were already searched and interrogated in previous weeks and months. The raid were part of a combating misogyny online, which, you know, maybe there needs to be something done about the levels of misogyny online. I don't know if police raids are the best solution, but like maybe there does need to be something done about that. And if social media companies are not going to enforce hate speech violations, like hate speech terms of service, then, you know, okay. We're observing how online platforms are increasingly becoming the scene of hate, harassment, and discrimination, also targeting especially women. Today's day of action makes it clear we consciously go into the spaces of hate, identify acts and perpetrators, and take them out of their anonymity and bring them to accountability, okay? What kind of hate speech was it, though? Because if it was like rape threats or death threats, that is completely valid. Shouldn't there be hundreds of raids every day then? I'm not saying that raids are necessarily the solution, but for example, there's a French streamer there's a trial going on right now of a French streamer, and I think 3 out of 4 of the people accused of harassing her got prison sentences. Like, yeah, if the hate speech is bad enough, if the harassment is bad enough, if it's like, you know, constant rape threats and stuff, there should be legal consequences for that. I'm not saying that someone saying, oh, go back to the kitchen needs to have like their door busted down by police. But if it's like, you know, you send a rape threat and a couple of days later, police knock on your door and say, what the fuck was that? And like try to assess if it was a real threat or not. Maybe that would not necessarily be a bad thing in terms of making people think twice about what they post online. Especially because in this case, none of the suspects were detained.
To Sweden, where 2 weeks ago the government convicted a Christian activist for participating in Koran burnings that resulted in his friend's murder. And as the judge...
Yeah, I'm not a fan of controversial opinion. I wouldn't, like, I'm not going to go out and burn a Koran myself, but I do think that that should be part of protected free speech. I do think you should have the right to blaspheme in secular countries and democracies in general. I don't like that we're going after people for criticizing religions, even in ways that we disagree of. There's a difference between that and actually like being racist or being xenophobic and targeting people. Oh, cat coughing.
Judge in his case chillingly noted.
Give me a second. Hey, you okay? You okay? You okay, baby? It's okay. It's okay. Sleep, sleep, sleep. You're okay. You're okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, she sounded like she was choking.
Sweden's laws to supposedly protect free expression.
As a Muslim, burnings are very disrespectful, but giving these people media police attention is the reason they do it. That is true. And like, I agree that it's disrespectful, which is why I wouldn't do it. But in the same way that, you know, I think you should be allowed to go like spit on a church or something. If you go like inside the church or if you like tag the outside of the church and do damage to the church, that's a different thing. But like the book itself is different from like the mosque. If you vandalize a mosque, that is different. But I don't know. There's a piece of art. What is it? It's called Piss Christ. Piss Christ. That is very controversial for Christians. That is literally, you know, Jesus in a vat of piss. And I'm sorry, I don't have a problem with it. Wasn't it destroyed? Wasn't it damaged or something? No, it wasn't. Yeah, I think it was like damaged, but they managed to restore it. Okay, no, a print of Piss Christ was vandalized beyond repair. Anyway, like I think democracies should have the freedom to be very disrespectful. Like there's a limit between being disrespectful and actually engaging in hate speech and encouraging violence against people, which is where I draw the line personally. And you know, I think I know that people will have different. What about ex-Muslims burning the Quran? Yeah, no, I think that should be something that is acceptable. I I know that there are different lines between what people find to be like where they put the line on what is acceptable free speech, like what is acceptable offensive free speech. But I personally, and maybe this is because I was, you know, partly raised in the US, partly raised in like US influenced culture over my life, that I put the line, I placed the bar pretty high on that. I don't think I'm no longer a free speech absolutist like I used to be. I do think that having some enforcements of any kind of any kind of advocacy for violence, any kind of even things that will likely lead to violence need to be dealt with in before they become a bigger problem. But and I think that I'm not a free speech absolutist in the sense of we should be able to say anything on social media and not have any consequences for that either. Like social media should have terms of service, and they should be enforcing those terms of service with you know, the good of their community online as their priority, and having a healthy online community that doesn't, where you don't get like, you receive death threats, and when you report the death threats, you get a message saying, oh, sorry, that wasn't a violation of our terms of service, which is like literally that happened to me a few times. Like when I report a threat that I get and they go like, this doesn't go against our community guidelines, like fuck off. No, that shouldn't be okay. But yeah, I don't know. Like, and okay, I think Quran burnings should be okay, but if someone burns a Quran and posts a video of that online as a way to get attention, I think it's totally fine for that video to be taken down. But I don't think that person should have legal consequences and be fined or jailed or something like that for doing the Quran burning. That's what I would place it as.
Do not, in fact, grant, and I'm quoting, a free pass to do.
What do you think of armed neutrality? Do you mean like would armed neutrality be like the Switzerland position? Arms neutrality is the term used in international policy for the attitude of a state or group of states that make no alliance with either side in the war. Okay, so it's just like the Switzerland position. I think there's a place for it. I think there are absolutely cases where it's like hard to justify staying neutral, like in like a World War II situation. In a situation where, how can I put this? What if ex-Muslim posts a burning Quran vid? I would have the same standard. If social media companies decide that they want to take that down, I'm totally fine with it. If you know, they post it on, I don't know, what is it, Gab or whatever, right-wing platform that doesn't enforce any kinds of terms of service, like a Kick or whatever, and they want to keep it up, like, yeah, sure, go post it there. But like, there are reasons why those kinds of platforms struggle. And historically, this is changing, unfortunately, but historically, the platforms that were more supposed to be meant for everyone had stronger terms of service because they were trying to avoid kind of, you know, like the offensive content for being promoted there. Those are places where, like, if they want to take down offensive contents like burning Qurans, like, yeah, okay, that way Muslims will not have to look at, you know, people burning Qurans on that platform, and that would be fine, you know. What was I saying? In a case where, for example, you're Switzerland and you see Germany actually winning the war, and like they are winning, but it's close enough that you entering the war doesn't Gab ban porn? I don't know. I don't even know. In a case where Switzerland joining the war would actually shift the tide in the other direction, I think it's hard to justify staying neutral in those circumstances, especially in the case of like World War II, where like Germany was the fucking Nazis. But if it's a matter of us joining the war is not going to make that big of a difference, and us not joining the war means that we will have much less of the negative consequences of if either side wins or whatever. Like, you know, if Switzerland hadn't, like, if Germany won World War II and Switzerland stayed neutral, Germany probably, maybe they would still try to invade Switzerland, although Switzerland is a very fortified country because of a bunch of reasons. The bunkers they have, the mountains that they're in, and all of that. But yeah, if Germany decided to peace out and not invade Switzerland because they stayed neutral as a reward for like not fighting, like taking arms against them, that would have been a good strategic decision for Switzerland to make. So yeah, there are circumstances where I think it is defensible for a bunch of different reasons, like selfish reasons and strategic reasons to stay neutral. But yeah, sometimes it's just like such a clear moral conflict that it's, you know, it's hard to defend staying neutral in some cases.
Or say anything without risking offending the group that holds that belief. And perhaps most concerningly, I look to our very dear friends, the United Kingdom, where the backslide away from conscience rights has placed the basic liberties of religious Britons in particular in the crosshairs. A little over 2 years ago,
I agree. The religious liberties of Muslim British people are really at risk when their mosques are being attacked after a mass stabbing that didn't even involve a Muslim person.
A little over 2 years ago, the British government charged Adam Smith Connor, a 51-year-old physiotherapist and an Army veteran, with the heinous crime of standing 50 meters from an abortion clinic and silently praying for 3 minutes.
I do think that some of the UK's laws when it comes to free speech and political protest are quite insane. And part of the manifestation that we're seeing of that is the batshit crazy prison sentences that they're handing out for environmental protesters. But that also applies to other things, you know, like even protests that I disagree with, like if his description of this event is true, I do think that goes too far. But yeah, no, generally speaking, the UK has pretty insane rules when it comes to political speech and political protesting that I mostly disagree with, and that I don't think are, like, the EU doesn't have anything that drastic in Western Europe at least.
Not obstructing anyone, not interacting with anyone, just silently.
Yeah, exactly. When the worst person you know makes a great point, but for the entirely wrong reason, exactly.
Praying on his own. And after British law enforcement spotted him and demanded to know what he was praying for, Adam replied simply, it was on behalf of the unborn son he and his former girlfriend had aborted years before. Now, the officers were not moved. Adam was found guilty of breaking the government's new buffer zones law, which criminalizes silent prayer and other actions that could influence a person's decision within 200 meters of an abortion facility. He was sentenced to pay thousands of pounds in legal costs to the
Yeah, I'm very skeptical of this description. Let's look into it, since Tryon is pointing out that that's not what happened. Do you have a source that would summarize what actually happened? UK silent prayer abortion clinic. Okay, maybe this will address it. JD Vance described as extremist over attack on UK abortion clinic safe zones. US Vice President's comments, part of a wide-ranging tirade against Europe, called inaccurate and misogynistic. What is the inaccuracy? Wait. Boom. Heidi Stewart, the chief executive of BPAS, I don't know what BPAS is, the UK's leading provider of abortion services, said safe zones, buffer areas of 150 meters around around clinics designed to stop women from being harassed, with leaflets showing pictures of fetuses having to pass by vigils, were vital to protect women's access to essential health care in an overwhelmingly pro-choice country. Can we actually have the debunk of what Vance said? She accused Vance of calling, so this is Labour MP Stella Creasy. She accused Vance of calling for the right to harass women having an abortion because our bodies are their battleground, our human rights their targets. Okay, but that's not really addressing the inaccuracy. I guess it will hopefully be in this article here if we don't have it in the one we're reading. In Vance's speech at the Munich Security Conference, he said the UK had placed the basic liberties of Britons in the crosshairs, of religious Britons in the crosshairs, citing the prosecution of Adam Smith Connor, a physiotherapist and army veteran. Vance said he had been charged with, okay, we just heard what he said. Connor Smith, who is receiving legal support from Alliance Defending Freedom International, a conservative Christian legal advocacy group in the US, was convicted of breaching a safe zone in October last year after refusing to repeated requests to move away from outside an abortion clinic. Okay, that is very different. So police asked him to move. They told him, hey, you can go do this outside of the safe zone around the clinic. And he refused to do it. Again, I think the UK goes way too far in terms of what can and can't be done for political protest, but like this is not an example that seems unreasonable to me. If they decided that, hey, abortion clinics are targets of insane levels of harassment and protest and trying to stop people from the right to get an abortion, it's completely reasonable to declare that there's a safe zone, and if there's a protest happening inside that safe zone, police get to say, hey, move past the limits, and then you can protest and do your stupid silent prayers if you want. Check Discord. Give me a sec. Praying man breached abortion limit clinic safe zone. Okay. The 51-year-old from Southampton denied failing to comply with the order. But district judge blah 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 said on Wednesday his actions had been deliberate. Okay. what is the denied failing to comply with the order? Does he mean that he did comply with the order? 2-year conditional discharge. The court was told he had been praying for his unborn son, who he said died from abortion 22 years ago. So it's the court that heard that he prayed for his unborn son, not the police at the moment of the arrest. If the police said, hey, move past the limits, and he doesn't, then I guess that's the law. They can arrest him for that. A community officer spoke to him for an hour and 40 minutes, asked him to leave, but he refused. Okay, that's pretty clear. Like this wouldn't be okay in the US. The US has laws where, like, if a police officer tells you to move and you don't, like, you, in a lot of cases, you have a right to stay. But if the UK has laws specifically around abortion clinics, like, this is a completely defensible approach. Check a bit further down the article. During the case brought by BCP Council, the court hearing had a meeting with council the day before to inform it about his silent vigil. The court heard that he had emailed the council the day before to inform it about his silent vigil, as he had done on previous occasions. On the day he was asked to leave by a community officer, spoke with him for an hour and 40 minutes, but he refused. Yeah, okay. Well, if 75% of the residents in the area support the buffer zone, that's a democratic approach to things, I guess. Yeah, like, again, this completely unsurprising, but turns out J.D. Vance is basically lying about this whole thing, or presenting a wildly distorted version of the events.
Prosecution. Now, I wish I could say that this was a fluke, a one-off crazy example of a badly written law being enacted against...
Yeah, exactly. TLDR, he intended to be arrested and broke the law on purpose because his girlfriend had an abortion 22 years ago. He is the nut job here. Like, he emailed in advance saying, hey, I am going to violate the safe zone. Like, the fact that he emailed in advance saying that he was going to do that, and then police came and was like, hey, can you move beyond the limits? And he was like, no, fuck you, basically. And then he was arrested for that. That is, I mean, what you can argue, that is basically civil disobedience. But if it's civil disobedience in a kind of Rosa Parks kind of way, I guess, then admit it. Don't claim that it was like this poor guy who just happened to be praying for his dead son and had nothing, like, was not harming anyone. No, he was doing civil disobedience. He was trying to get arrested to challenge the current laws. But, like, be honest about it. Don't lie about it by saying that it was something completely different.
A single person. But no, this last October, just a few months ago, the Scottish government began distributing letters to citizens whose
exactly.
houses...
Rosa Parks got arrested and convicted. Yeah, and that was the point. Like, that was the goal, you know. But they weren't, like, they weren't present, like, when they did that, what they said was like, hey, this arrest was, like, completely unreasonable, and, like, not the arrest itself, but, like, the laws need to change so that this doesn't happen. And that was a civil rights movement, but they didn't pretend like Rosa Parks didn't intend to do that. It was her activism. Like, that's what they were doing. It was a planned thing that they did. Own your activism, even if it's for evil. Yes, exactly.
Lay within so-called safe access zones, warning them that even private prayer within their own homes may amount to breaking the law. Naturally,
excuse me, that sounds completely made up. What?
Had aborted years before. Now, the officers were not moved Adam was found guilty of breaking the government's new buffer zones law, which criminalizes silent prayer and other actions that could influence a person's decision within 200 meters of an abortion facility. He was sentenced to pay thousands of pounds in legal costs to the prosecution. Now, I wish I could say that this was a fluke, a one-off crazy example of a badly written law being enacted against a single person. But no, this last October, just a few months ago, the Scottish government began distributing letters to citizens whose houses lay within so-called safe access zones, warning them that even private prayer within their own homes may amount to breaking the law.
There's no way there's absolutely no way this is true. I do not believe him that prayer within the own homes of the people in that area would be breaking the law. That sounds completely made up. There's no way that's true. I don't even know what to Google for that.
Within their own homes, to citizens. This last October, just a few months ago, the Scottish government began distributing letters to citizens.
Scottish government letters, safe access zones, prayer homes. Is that? Scottish government hits back that JD Vance's abortion claim. It sends out illegal prayer warning letters. Vance claimed the Scottish government told people they could be breaking the law by praying in their own homes. Have you heard of Sturgeon Schittler comments? That rings a bell, but I don't think I've actually seen the thing. The Scottish government has told Yahoo News that U.S. President J.D. Vance's claim is incorrect. Okay, we just saw what he says. He highlighted the case of blah, blah, blah. That was bullshit. He went on to claim this last October. Okay, we just saw this. In England, where the incident in... Okay, this we already saw. In Scotland, buffer zones apply within 200 meters. Proponents of the safe access zones say women using a clinic can feel intimidated and distressed by the presence of someone standing in the area praying, even if they are not speaking. Critics argue the rule undermines the right to freedom of religion and free speech. A Scottish government spokesperson told Yahoo News that Vice President's claim is incorrect. Private prayer at home is not prohibited within safe access zones, and no letter has ever been suggested it was. I really want to know what letters he is talking about. Is he making up the letters, or did the letters say something completely different? And the letters are not mentioned for the rest of the article. Can someone help me find what these letters are? Is this just like fake news that circulated on conservative social media or something? People continue to have the right to free speech and to protest in free speech. However, no one has the right to harass women. Let's see. Let's try to search for its like Scotland letter abortion clinic prayer. Tools anytime. Boom. From October to, let's say, November 1st, go. Christian news. Scottish Christians fear fines for praying at home near abortion clinics. Residents living in an area of Edinburgh within an abortion buffer zone say they're concerned that they may be criminals for praying in their homes. A letter from the Scottish government has now been sent to residents within Edinburgh's safe zones, saying that while the rules mainly apply to actions carried on public spaces, such activities in private spaces or homes could be an offense if seen or heard within the zone. I would like to see that letter. And also, if it's like, okay, you are technically standing within your home, but you have a bullhorn sticking out the window, and that's how you're praying it, like, yeah, that is not private prayer within your own home. That is different from private prayer within your own home. If you're doing a protest, if you're like avoiding, if you're doing that kind of like finagling around the rules where it's like, I'm not in the streets, I'm in my home, I'm just like being a huge inconvenience from the inside of my home by being loud and screaming out the window in my form of protest, then obviously, yeah, that is a violation. Like the fact that you're technically standing inside your home doesn't make it not a public protest. If you pray within in your home, you may be liable for a criminal offense and subjected to a £10,000 fine. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if standing within the zone and praying silently in public does that, and like screaming out your window, like, yeah, that counts too. If it can be found that you were doing that on purpose to be a nuisance, then yeah, fuck off. Like to paint that as being a letter that is gonna criminalize private prayer within your own home, unbelievable lies. It's crazy how like nothing he says is true.
Citizens whose houses lay within so-called safe access zones, warning them that even private prayer within their own homes may amount to breaking the law. Naturally, the government urged readers to report any fellow citizens suspected guilty of thought crime. In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat. And in the interest of comedy, my friends, but also in the interest of truth, I will admit that sometimes the loudest voices for censorship have come not from within Europe, but from within my own country, where the prior administration threatened and bullied social media companies to censor so-called misinformation. Misinformation like, for example, the idea...
This is just so you know, this is coming from an administration that has a list of banned words that cannot be included in scientific research now, and those words include bias, racism, gender, like so many other, like they have entire lists of words that cannot be included in new research that the government funds. And he's claiming that, yeah, the censorship is coming from the other side. They have, they're applying Project 2025. Project 2025 has a list of 3,000 books that they want to ban from school libraries. The level of dishonesty and bad faith here is off the charts.
That coronavirus had likely leaked from a laboratory in China. Our own government encouraged private companies to silence people who dared to utter what turned out to be an obvious truth. So I come here.
We still don't know if that's the case. Were the reactions to disinformation on social did the anti-disinformation measures regarding COVID misfire in some cases? Yes, I think you can arguably say that they did, but like the level of misinformation was so insane that needing to, like, it was absolutely, literally can't research women. No, exactly, Janine. The fact that there was so much disinformation around COVID that they had to cast like kind of like a wide net, and unfortunately a bunch of like kind of reasonable discussions got caught in the crosshairs is true. And like, yeah, it's a good thing that they corrected that, but they did correct it after a while. But it's still not proven, and it might be true, but it's still not proven that it leaked from a lab. We don't know. Maybe we'll never know. It's entirely possible, but to coming from an administration that has been in the name of free, like while touting their, support for free speech, have actually been some of the most censorious. Oh, by the way, they're also defunding schools for including any kind of discussion of gender in their classrooms, and calling students by their preferred gender and their preferred names. defunded now by the government, in federal funding from the government. Yeah, they're not at all first free. Like they're the fact that they're claiming that it's first free speech is insane. Oh, and apparently YouTube is censoring Tryon. YouTube is still fucking with me, so here I am with the Discord workaround, but on the last statement, who gives a shit where the virus leaked? Yeah, no, I agree with that. From all you care, it leaked out of my bathroom. We should focus on curing it. Yeah, and I agree with that. The problem was indeed I think it's probably true that some reasonable discussion about the lab got censored. That shouldn't have been. But the intended targets of those censorship rules, of those like that push for like preventing people from talking about the China virus, or you know, pushing for rhetoric that would encourage hate towards Asians. There was unbelievable violence against Asians during that time in the US and elsewhere. So a lot of the intents behind the rules were completely reasonable. The fact that they misfired and sometimes ended up banning some content, that's unfortunate, and it was corrected, and it wasn't a big deal. That is very different from, for example, now where it's literally becoming impossible to research anything to do with race or racism or women or gender or a bunch of other things in the US right now, which is crazy.
Here today, not just with an observation, but with an offer. And just as the Biden administration seemed desperate to silence people for speaking their minds, so the Trump administration will do precisely the opposite, and I hope that we can work together on that. In Washington,
by exactly knowing where it was coming from and curing it would potentially been easier, though. Yes, but I don't think discussion on social media was helping people know where it was coming. Like, was helping, you know, like the authorities know where the virus was coming from. Like the investigation into where the virus came from, and people talking out of their ass and not knowing what they were talking about on social media are like two very different things. Again, I do think that there should be permissiveness to speculate on where the virus came from without that being immediately shut down as disinformation. But there's a difference between that and like being racist against China and whatever. I'm not saying like there wasn't an over enforcement of those rules, but it was also a crazy time. Like the pandemic of 2020 is going to remain one of the most significant events in modern history until more shit happens very soon, unfortunately. But yeah, no, it was a crazy time. Like, it was pretty insane. Oops.
There is a new sheriff in town, and under Donald Trump's leadership, we may disagree with your views, but we will fight to defend your right to offer it in the public square.
As long as you're not trying to publish it in scientific documents, in scientific papers.
Disagree.
Or, you know, as long as you're not a school employee. There's like two people applauding in the frame.
Now, we're at the point, of course, that the situation has gotten so bad that this December, Romania straight up canceled the results of a presidential election based on the flimsy suspicions of an intelligence agency and enormous pressure from its continental neighbors. Now,
oh my God. I mean, we already covered this extensively. They're just, I mean, so I was saying before, during, and after the election, oh, look, Trump is going to be super pro-Russia. And there were signs that maybe not. There were signs that maybe Trump had evolved in his position on Russia, and maybe he was going to be pushing back a little bit more against Vladimir Putin. I've seen no indication of that since they took office. So far, it's been either completely like not caring about what Russia does, or actually supporting Russia in doing it. And this is just like, okay, they're just going to pretend like Russia didn't try to steal a European election. They're just going to pretend that didn't happen.
As I understand it, the argument was that Russian disinformation had infected the Romanian elections. But I'd ask my European friends to have some perspective. You can believe it's wrong for Russia to buy social media advertisements to influence your elections. We certainly do. You can condemn it on the world stage even. But if your democracy can be destroyed with a few $100,000 of digital advertising from a foreign country, then it wasn't very strong to begin with.
I agree, and part of how you make it stronger is take action against an attack on your election by rerunning it and fixing the problem to begin with. Yeah, exactly. They weren't buying ads. They were running a massive psyop.
Now, the good news...
Jesus, did you hear the number of applause there? Because like, he knows he's lying. He knows this is bullshit. And the people at the Munich Security Conference are security experts. Like, they know this was a major attack on a European democracy that needed to be dealt with. There's like 2 people applauding in the entire room. Literally 2 people. You hear 2 separate applause there. There's only 2 people applauding.
Now, the good news is that I happen to think your democracies are substantially less brittle than many people apparently fear. And I really do believe that allowing our citizens to speak their mind will make them stronger still. Which, of course, brings us back to Munich, where the organizers of this very conference have banned lawmakers representing populist parties on both the left and the right from participating.
Yeah, it's his secretary and his wife. Yeah, good point. That was probably the case.
In these conversations. Now, again, we don't have to agree with everything or anything that people say. But when people represent, when political leaders represent an important constituency, it is incumbent upon us to at least participate in dialogue with them. Now, to many of us on the other side of the Atlantic, it looks more and more like old entrenched interests hiding behind ugly Soviet-era words like misinformation and disinformation, who simply don't like the idea.
Excuse me? What? Soviet-era words like misinformation and disinformation? What the fuck is he talking about? Is he denying that misinformation and disinformation exists? Is this guy literally just a Russian asset? Literally just a Russian asset. Trying to pretend like there isn't misinformation and disinformation going around.
That somebody...
I'll have you on when we're done with the speech.
With an alternative viewpoint might express a different opinion or, God forbid, vote a different way or, even worse, win an election. Now, this is a security conference, and I'm sure you all came here prepared to talk about how exactly you intend to increase defense spending over the next few years in line with some new target.
I'm sorry, this is a security conference where, like, they shouldn't be prepared to have one of their speakers openly criticize the fact that they took action against a major security threat in their country by a hostile foreign power.
And that's great, because as President Trump has made abundantly clear, he believes that our European friends must play a bigger role in the future of this continent. We don't think, you hear this term, burden sharing, but we think it's an important part of being in a shared alliance together that the Europeans step up while America focuses on areas of the world that are in great danger. But let me also ask you, how will you even begin to think through the kinds of budgeting questions if we don't know what it is that we're defending in the first place? I've heard a lot already in my conversations, and I've had many, many great conversations with many people gathered here in this room. I've heard a lot about what you need to defend yourselves from, and of course that's important. But what has seemed a little bit less clear to me, and certainly I think to many of the citizens of Europe, is what exactly it is that you're defending yourselves for. What is the positive vision that animates this shared security compact?
Democracy and human rights, the stuff that the US is actively trying to destroy.
That we all believe is so important. And I believe deeply that there is no security if you are afraid of the voices, the opinions, and the conscience that guide your very own people. Europe faces many challenges, But the crisis this continent faces right now, the crisis I believe we all face together, is one of our own making.
I don't disagree with that. Fascism is a crisis of our own making.
If you're running in fear of your own voters, there is nothing America can do for you. Nor, for that matter, is there anything that you can do for the American people who elected me and elected President Trump. You need...
No one cares about you, man. No one elected you. They didn't care that you were on the ballot. It's Trump and Musk at this point. You're just a background player.
Need democratic mandates to accomplish anything of value in the coming years. Have we learned nothing that thin mandates produce unstable results? But there is so much of value that can be accomplished with the kind of democratic mandate that I think will come from being more responsive to the voices of your citizens. If you're going to enjoy competitive economies, if you're going to enjoy affordable energy and secure supply chains, then you need mandates to govern, because you have to make difficult choices to enjoy all of these things. And of course, we know that very well in America. You cannot win a democratic mandate by censoring your opponents or putting them in jail. Whether that's the leader of the opposition, a humble Christian...
Wait. What's happening? Why is my chat broken? Give me a sec. Okay. I should be... Oh, wait, shit. It's not. What happened? Okay. Everyone's still there? Can you send me a thing in chat if you still see me? Hear me? Testing 1, 2. Okay, that is working there. Not on Discord. Testing on Discord. Okay, that is working now. Okay, should be fine. Sorry about that.
Praying in her own home, or a journalist trying to report the news. Nor can you win one by disregarding your basic electorate on energy and secure supply chains. If you're going to enjoy competitive economies, if you're going to enjoy affordable energy and secure supply chains, then you need mandates to govern, because you have to make difficult choices to enjoy all of these things. And of course, we know that very well in America. You cannot win a democratic mandate by censoring your opponents or putting them in jail. Whether that's the leader of the opposition, a humble Christian praying in her own home, or a journalist trying to report the news.
Where's this journalist trying to report the news thing coming from? Did he bring that up as another anecdote that he was super dishonest about? Or is this coming out of nowhere because it's the whole thing about disinformation that he just literally doesn't believe disinformation exists, apparently?
Nor can you win one by disregarding your basic electorate on questions like who gets to be a part of our shared society. And of all the pressing challenges that the nations represented here face, I believe there is nothing more urgent than mass migration. Today, almost 1 in 5 people living in this country moved here from abroad. That is, of course, an all-time high. It's a similar number, by the way, in the United States, also an all-time high. The number of immigrants who entered the EU from non-EU countries doubled between 2021 and 2022 alone, and of course, it's gotten much higher since. And we know the situation, it didn't materialize in a vacuum. It's a result.
Wait. If the next words he's about to say aren't of the war in Ukraine, then I don't even know what the fuck. Between 2021 and 2022, what possibly happened in 2022 that a bunch of people from outside the EU entered the EU? I don't know. What possibly could it have been?
Of a series of conscious decisions made by politicians
in Russia. What?
all over the continent and others across the world over the span of a decade. We saw the horrors wrought by these decisions yesterday in this very city. And of course, I can't bring it up again without thinking about the terrible victims who had a beautiful winter day in Munich ruined, our thoughts and prayers are
And
with
also, yeah, of course, the results of the wars in the Middle East, but that's been something that's been happening from 2015. It's been happening for 10 years. The difference between 2021 and 2022 is not the Mediterranean migrant crisis. It's the war in Ukraine. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, seriously, obviously, what the fuck?
them and will remain with them. But why did this happen in the first place? It's a terrible story, but it's one we've heard way too many times in Europe and unfortunately too many times in the United States as well.
That European and North American powers, mostly the United States, destabilize the world and create conditions for migrants and refugees to need to find other places to go. Yes, that is unfortunately something that we've heard a lot of places happen in a lot of places all around the world. But like the case of between 2021 and 2022 is Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Like it is just so unbelievably obvious.
An asylum seeker, often a young man in his mid-20s, already known to police, rams a car into a crowd and shatters a community.
Yeah, I agree that sucks. I agree that there needs to be better screening of those, we need to do a better job of trying to prevent that from happening. But that doesn't mean mass deportations of every single refugee in the continents. That is not a solution. You know, mass deporting millions of people who are genuine refugees fleeing from horrible conditions and wars and famines and horrible geopolitical situations from all over the world is not a solution to a few dozen attacks that happen to be happening from minorities that are like massively amplified by right-wing media, when similar attacks happening by white people, by non-refugees, are just completely silent and don't get headlines anywhere because, like, yes, crimes happen sometimes. It is bad when they happen. It is bad when they happen and they're done by asylum seekers. It's bad when they happen when they're done by other people. But that is not a reason to mass deport like millions of people from the continent. It's like the reality is they don't really care about the attacks. They just want an excuse to justify the mass deportation of refugees from the continent.
How many times must we suffer these appalling setbacks before we change course and take our shared civilization in a new direction?
If all that terrorists do is ram cars into people, that is security working, lest I remind you that Paris used to explode weekly a decade ago. Yeah, actually, there's even crazier things that happened in Europe long before the refugee crisis. Like there were like massive terrorist attacks in the when was the Shah of Iran? When did he get pushed out of power? Okay, until 79. So it was the 79 revolution. In like the early 80s, there were massive terrorist attacks organized by Iran in Paris that killed way more people, like not as many people as like the November attacks in at the Bataclan and all of that, but like terrorist attacks in Europe didn't start with the refugee crisis, and it is not the fault of the refugees that they happened. And also, like, yeah, we had massive terrorism in the UK during the Troubles. There was massive terrorism in Spain with ETA. The idea that violence just like magically started out of nowhere because of refugees and the continent was so peaceful before 2015 is a lie. That is not true. That is not the case. That is just lying. It is just painting a fake reality to justify the mass deportation of refugees.
No voter on this continent went to the ballot box to open the floodgates to millions of unvetted immigrants. But you know what they did vote for? In England, they voted for Brexit, and agree or disagree, they voted for it. And more all over Europe, they're voting for political leaders who promise to put an end to out-of-control migration. Now, I happen to agree with a lot of these concerns, but you don't have to agree with me. I just think that people care about their homes, they care about their dreams, they care about their safety and their capacity to provide for themselves and their children. And they're smart. I think this is one of the most important things I've learned in my brief time in politics. Contrary to what you might hear a couple mountains over in Davos, the citizens of all of our nations don't generally think of themselves as educated animals or as interchangeable cogs of a global economy. And it's hardly surprising that they don't want to be shuffled about or relentlessly ignored.
Jesus, oh my God, this is a neo-Nazi talking point that's barely disguised. The interchangeable cogs of an economy is a neo-Nazi talking point that was very hardly hit on, like hit on very strongly by what's his name, that Nazi comedian guy, the Dear Elon guy. Sam Hyde. Yeah, this is a barely disguised Nazi talking point. I can't get into it right now. I'll probably get into it at some other point. But the idea of like this, we're not interchangeable cogs of an economy. Davos mentioned as well, that's another thing. But the idea of we're not interchangeable cogs of an economy is also what the neo-Nazis were saying around the H-1B visa controversy that Elon Musk kickstarted a few weeks ago. It is a way of saying, no, you can't fire me and hire a foreigner from India to replace me because like that, you know, maybe economically that works, but that's going to break down the foundations of society or whatever. Like that is the kind of xenophobic and racist, like, you know, white nationalist kind of propaganda that they use. This is said in a much more subtle way where it doesn't sound like the same thing, but like it really like it is a very veiled reference to that. Use propaganda to change people's minds about migration, then use people's changed minds. Exactly, yeah. Use propaganda to change people's minds about migration, then use people's changed minds to justify propaganda talking points as the will of the people. That's exactly true. That is, I hadn't thought of it that way, but it is completely unbelievably true what you just said. Yeah, it's a chicken and egg thing with these talking points. That is such a good point that I'm definitely going to steal in a future script.
In Davos, the citizens of all of our nations don't generally think of themselves as educated animals or as interchangeable cogs of a global economy. And it's hardly surprising that they don't want to be shuffled about or relentlessly ignored by their leaders. And it is the business of democracy to adjudicate these big questions at the ballot box. I believe that dismissing their concerns, or worse yet, shutting down media, shutting down elections, or shutting people.
Yeah, but like, if those concerns are only based on right-wing media that is dishonestly presenting the facts, and then yes, you can dismiss those concerns. I think we need to do more to address the disinformation, and just banning the disinformation isn't enough. Like, there needs to be better systems of information to try to debunk these, but it's kind of a it's an almost impossible task, because it's kind of like disinformation is kind of like starting half a dozen little fires in different parts of the country, and then expecting it to be the same amount of work to go put out those fires. But like, those fires spread, and now you have a huge amount of work to put out what, you know, only took a few minutes to start, you know?
People out of the political process protects nothing. In fact, it is the most surefire way to destroy democracy. And speaking up and expressing
the most surefire way to destroy democracy is to elect a fascist like they did in the US.
Opinions isn't election interference, even when people express views outside your own country, and even when those people are very influential. And trust me, I say this with all humor, if American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk.
Yeah. A high school student has the same amount of power to destroy democracy as literally the richest person in the history of humanity, who is in the most powerful position in the US government after only the president himself. Yes, those are the same thing. Oh my God, that is like the best analogy ever. I can't believe he was able to make that argument. That is such a good point. What the fuck is this speech? I send help. I don't know. What the fuck was that point? What? Oh my God, I can't. I'm done with this. I can't do this anymore. I resign. I'm just gonna stop my channel tomorrow. I can't deal with this. This is too much. That killed me. That I'm done. Honestly, exe has stopped working. Usall.exe has stopped working. I am so like I can't even. My brain cannot process the unfathomable stupidity of that. That is just out of this world.
But what German democracy, what no democracy, American, German, or European, will survive is telling millions of voters that their thoughts and concerns, their aspirations, their pleas for relief are invalid or unworthy of even being considered. Democracy rests on the sacred principle that
This guy's like, I can't fucking believe what this speech is saying. This is unbelievable.
valid
Look at that,
or
look at that
unworthy
guy.
of even being considered. Democracy
He's like, I mean, are you fucking serious? Like, are you kidding me right now?
rests on the sacred principle that the voice of the people matters. There's no room for firewalls. You either uphold the principle or you don't.
Oh, this is the German firewall. He's saying there's no room for firewalls that where democratic parties put a firewall between themselves and fascist parties like the AfD. That's the name of the German firewall that they have that says, oh, no party that's democratic should ally with the AfD. And they call that the firewall. He's saying, oh, there's no room for that because he wants to usher in fascism in Europe. That is that clear. The AfD is a neo-Nazi party. It is explicitly a neo-Nazi party that uses barely hidden neo-Nazi symbolism in its communication, and that is allying with other neo-Nazis all over the world. It is a neo-Nazi party. And she's saying, oh yeah, it's anti-democratic to have a firewall that against you working with them. No, I'm sorry. No, fuck off.
Don't. Europeans, the people, have a voice. European leaders have a choice. And my strong belief is that we do not need to be afraid of the future. You can embrace what your people tell you, even when it's surprising, even when you don't agree. And if you do so, you can face the future with certainty and with confidence, knowing that the nation stands behind each of you. And that, to me, is the great magic of democracy. It's not in these stone buildings or beautiful hotels. It's not even in the great institutions that we have built together as a shared society. To believe in democracy is to understand that each of our citizens has wisdom and has a voice. And if we refuse to listen to that voice, even our most successful fights will secure very little. As Pope John Paul II, in my view, one of the most extraordinary champions of democracy on this continent or any other, once said, do not be afraid. We shouldn't be afraid of our people, even when they express views that disagree with their leadership. Thank you all.
Just let me check something. Yeah, he was Pope between 78 and 2005. So during the end of the Cold War and then during some of the most peaceful times in human history. So, yes, it is a different situation to be in favor of, more radical free speech absolutism in those times than it is now when fascism is on the rise again.
Good luck to all of you. God bless you.
Honestly, okay, what I'll say is what I heard from this speech elsewhere was way more doomer than what I expected this speech to be way worse in a lot of ways. It was mostly just incredibly stupid and incredibly bad faith, but nothing too surprising coming from a fascist administration in the US. I think the people who've been warning me about this speech is more like realizing how bad the administration are in the US, which I had already fully realized, I guess. I'm more just baffled by that Greta Thunberg comparison thing, which is just like, I'm just broken by that completely. John Paul II was quite honestly pretty garbage because he allowed the whole situation. Oh yeah, that too. Like that's a completely different thing. Yeah, but That is true, yeah. He allowed the whole sex abuse scandal to grow and assigned handling of Ratzinger Benedict 16th. Anyway, yeah, that was quite something. My brain is still completely fucked by that Elon Musk Greta Thunberg comparison. I am struggling to recover from that. Tryon, you still want to come on? The cats are asking for food. It was one of the speeches to ever happen. It was definitely one of the speeches of this century. Not to mention, he got politically involved only in Poland because it was personal and actively tried to suppress liberation theology, advocates, and spurned bishops who advocated it. I don't know enough about that whole thing to understand what you're talking about. Anyway, let's have some Tryon ranting about other stuff that is happening. Mostly Elon Musk, it seems. Okay. Oh, wait, shit. Let me turn my virtual camera on. Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Hi there.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
don't
Let me
see
set
it.
your volume correctly for chat. And
Okay,
let
let's
me
see if
turn
this
my
device
camera on.
works. Hello, chat. This is the face of somebody who just heard the worst Greta Thunberg joke ever. Honest, I used to think that the worst Greta Thunberg joke belonged to Putin, but he's been beaten. It's over.
Okay, apparently I
How
can't turn my
many?
camera on, so I'll just not be on camera for
Do
your
you want me
side.
to turn off
No,
mine?
keep yours on.
Yeah.
I'll have you on screen, but my camera won't be on.
So fuck yeah. Okay, just can I address like three things before I go on about mail on rant?
Sure, go ahead.
Because like it's related.
Wait.
First things first, Ursula von der Leyen was there like piece by strength, piece by strength. Strength, madam? Whose? Do you trust that motherfucker that just produced I don't know what I need whatever he's smoking. I need a lot of it. Can I please have it? One of the basic rules of university is that you pass the blunt. So, can you please, JD? And the second thing is, well, this is definitely fascism. Let me clarify that this is not the SS destroying the German government for ideological reason. This is a gargle of incels pulling the copper out the fucking walls, trying to figure out where's the woke mind virus that doesn't let women talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
Because what the fuck was that? Like, beef with Greta Thunberg anymore. She doesn't matter. She's not in charge of anything.
Yeah.
Ever.
It is funny how irrationally angry they are about Greta Thunberg.
How
as
dare
this,
this
like-
young woman have an opinion?
Hmm?
To the kitchen.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
what this
How
sounds
dare
to
women
me.
have an opinion, like you say, yeah.
What else could it be? That they don't like her opinion? There's a billion women who disagree with them.
And like,
I would
honestly,
wager most women do.
Greta Thunberg's positions on climate change are some of the most like,
One of the most basic ass positions.
yeah, it's just what scientists have been saying for a long time, what the left has been saying for a long time. The fact that it's coming from a high school student who, you know, like, yes, speaks like a high school student, like her when she did her UN speech, it did sound a little bit like a theater kid, but like nothing she said was incorrect. It
because
wasn't a
at the
big deal.
time of that speech, she was a 15-year-old kid.
Yeah, it was just
Like,
exactly. It
knowing
was a
how
speech
I
by
spoke
a
when I
young,
was
like,
15, do not put me in front of the UN.
yeah, and honestly,
is
no,
going to
like
be
I think she
vague
did really
insults.
well for a 15-year-old speaking at the UN. I think she did incredibly well, but they don't like that a the main thing is like they don't want anything to be done about the environment. So no matter who it was speaking at the UN about climate change, they would have found reasons to discredit them. It's just that Greta Thunberg was getting a lot of attention because of her age and because of other things.
I mean,
So
because she
they
made a
had
very
to-
pointed argument, we are not going to have a future. Why am I in school? Which is a valid question
Completely, yeah.
that hasn't been answered, by the way. Also, out of curiosity, where does JD Vance intend to live when, the planet turns shit to live in? Like, I know that the science has been done. Humanity can survive climate change. About 20% of current humanity.
Well,
And North America is not looking good.
He'll be rich
Like,
enough to be
at
in the
all.
20%, don't worry.
That's not how it works when systems collapse, when the government is gone. Like, remember Pablo Escobar setting money on fire for heat because he couldn't buy anything with them? What do you think happens when shit hits the fan? Yeah, dollars are worthless.
There's a really funny, I need to find where this was. It was an author who had written books about, I don't remember what the details were. So this person who was kind of an expert on the subject was giving a speech to a bunch of billionaires who were investing in bunkers.
The guy who was like expert in like shelters and bunkers. Yeah, I know about this. And like they were asking him, how do we get our security guards to not betray us?
Exactly.
And he said, like, maybe get their families in the bunkers, establish social connection with them, make sure these people like you, and they were like, can we put electric collars on their neck?
Exactly, yeah, that's the thing that I'm talking
You are
about.
not surviving the bunker, buddy. Sorry, basic historical fact, your castle is only as strong as the commitment of the peasants in it.
Like, just for the people who don't know about this story, literally, billionaires are spending more time thinking about putting shock collars on the security guards that will guard their bunkers during climate change than they are about actually addressing the things that are causing climate change. That is the crazy thing.
Yeah, the rule keep the army happy.
Because
Yes,
they're worried about the fact that
obviously.
once they are once the richest people on Earth have to live in bunkers because of societal collapse after climate change, they're worried about the fact that the security guards could overtake them and overthrow them, so they would have to find solutions like electrical collars to keep them under control of the billionaires. Because once the world is that fucked, the fact that they're billionaires doesn't really matter anymore. Anyway,
also,
I'm going to feed the cats while you rant about Musk.
Yeah, okay. Can you just, before you do that, let me just pull up an article that you can put so people know what I'm ranting about.
Okay.
Okay. Yahoo Finance will do because I can't be bothered. But the first thing I want to mention is this isn't important, but from
Wait,
where
the article? Let me open it.
Yeah, it's on Discord. This isn't important. Like the particular what is being said here and why is it being said, I'll explain in a second, isn't important. It's just very revealing and I wanted to talk about it. But as soon as Stan pulls the article up somewhere you guys can see it, I'll mention it.
Oh yeah, I know about this, yeah. I know about this story.
So, Elon Musk, in his interview where the Donald was in the cook chair, because what else is going on here? Like, what is this? This is fascinating. America, you figured out how a prime minister works, except you didn't elect him. We just tend to elect ours over here. Don't want to worry you. Anyway, so in this press conference where Baby Human Shield, President Musk, and Cook Chair enthusiast the Donald were talking utter shit, Elon Musk said that they found 150-year-old people in the Social Security database. And you would think, damn, that's a very old people. We do not have a recorded case of a human living for 150 years. Yeah. Your database also doesn't transfer data and rely on a coding language called COBOL to transfer data. Fun fact for you. Computers don't have context or don't know how random numbers work. That's why whenever you set up something, you have to give it a base default value. And when there isn't a value there, the system always assumes it's the base default value set to it. Because if you don't, it's going to be random. And then there is somebody called Godzilla that's 900 years old in the US according to a social security database. So somebody didn't have a birth of days in the database. I don't know how that happens. I can't be asked to figure out how that happens. Kobo defaulted to the preset date in the coding language, which is the 1st of January 1875, which is exactly 150 years ago. And you would think, damn, maybe Trajan, don't worry. Elon is like not that good of a programmer. That's why he couldn't figure it out. Didn't know this 3 days ago. I just saw the title and I was like, damn, this doesn't pass the sniff test. So I Googled and yeah, turns out it was Kobo. And then I found a bunch of people who have worked in different US governments saying, yeah, it was most definitely Kobo. Elon doesn't know how like coding languages work. But Elon is a shit programmer, isn't news. Everybody knows this, but now. Here is what I want to bring up, because there's exactly 3 possible scenarios how we end up with this headline. Scenario the first, Elon and his children, not his actual children, because he hates those, the ones he decided are going to run the US government with him, which are about as qualified as interns for the company I work for, don't know how coding languages work and don't know how to Google things. Option 2, they're lying through their teeth in bad faith and they half-ass found something they can lie about and they're lying. Or the thing that definitely happened, and I'm not gonna say allegedly because I'm past the point of like, there isn't a code of ethics staple to the wall behind me because I'm not a journalist, so I'm just gonna tell you what happened. They're idiots who are acting in bad faith. They couldn't properly figure it out. Maybe one of them didn't properly disclose this lie like motherfuckers. That is the only way you end up with this article. Because what the fuck? How did you nobody one of the most basic things you do in programming is you sanity check. If the result you get is weird, you reference it with like something you know for a fact. If I create a database that knows the name of everybody on Earth, the first thing I'm doing is checking if it knows my name, checking if it knows my cat's name, checking if it knows my girlfriend's name. That's a sanity check. And if I pull Stan's name and that system tells me his name is Godzilla, I fucked up something. I'm gonna go check. Instead of going on public record and saying Stan is Godzilla, guys, look at him. He's eating Tokyo as we're speaking.
The question of whether this is ignorance or malice
It's
it's kind of almost irrelevant at this point, because if it's ignorance, it's willful ignorance. They're doing it on purpose. They do not care about what the truth is. A few other examples of this are the Politico situation, where they were like claiming that USAID had given $8 million to Politico, and therefore Politico was being used to like manipulate information, which was completely not true. But they also now do the same thing with apparently there is a payment by maybe the Pentagon or some other arm of the U.S. government to Thomson Reuters about psychological manipulation, and Elon Musk is claiming that is for Reuters, the news agency, to be doing psychological operations with their news agency, when Thomson Reuters is a separate thing from Reuters, the news agency. Thomson Reuters is a defense contractor that does like cybersecurity and data analysis and stuff like that, and other kinds of analysis. They do threat analysis, things like that. They're not the news agency. That is a different company. And the fact that Elon Musk found that like spending item in the budget of the US and immediately ran to Twitter to claim that it was, without verifying if this was true or not, to claim that it was Reuters is actually a psyop disinformation thing that is funded by the government, is wild that this guy gets taken seriously by anyone. And like at that point, it can't possibly be a good faith mistake, like a big oopsie, oh sorry, I was mistaken. I will double check next time before I run to Twitter to tell you the most batshit conspiracy brained bullshit thing I can come up with.
Two things I want to address. First is Jeff's question: what's the point of headline anyway? It's obviously programming error. Is it, Jeff? I know it's a programming error. I just told all of you it's a programming error. Do you think Hillbilly in Alabama knows it's a programming error? Do you think like I know for a fact that one of my colleagues in the American company I work for fell for this headline, and he's an actual factual programmer. He's more competent than me. Like, as much as I'm annoyed by the fact that they're also heavily Trump favored, all the people I work with, the Americans, are competent, intelligent, capable, and extremely compassionate people. They're just getting flooded with one of these, and eventually one works. But the reason I shared this article and thing I wanted to bring up is I've lived all my life in an incredibly corrupt country. This is not new to me. Start getting used to your government officials talking in not half truths like quarter truths. Whatever they say, assume
pretty
it's
good
in
line.
bad faith. Like this is a very clear action in bad faith. The speech we just watched of JD Vance taking a pop at irrelevant climate activist Greta Thunberg. It's an absolute bad faith. Like, this isn't a jab at Greta Thunberg because she's not running a government. But why has she actually changed? Is she that she's changing things, or is she that he's challenging these people and they can't stand it? Because they're acting in bad faith. They're mad that not only are we not accepting their actions as like that we're pointing their actions as bullshit, they want us to call this a moral good. They want to be like, you know what, damn, fuck them poors, abolish social security. And they will spam these articles because they want us to pretend that what they're doing is normal and good. It isn't. This is blatant fascism. There isn't line space for debate because,
No,
yeah,
Niels,
who the
just to answer
fuck?
the question, Niels, yes, they do own Reuters, but that doesn't make it that, you know, a contract with Thomson Reuters is not a contract with Reuters, the news agency. Even if Thomson Reuters owns Reuters, that doesn't mean that like you can immediately conclude that this spending thing was actually just Reuters being a psyop. Like, that is verifiably not the case, is what I was trying to say.
Also, sorry, you're gonna do a psyop through Reuters. One of the things you didn't mention in your last video, which I think is slightly relevant, if the Department of State of the US is doing something somewhere, assume malarkey, assume some bullshit is afoot, especially in South America. I don't know the transgender opera, but it was in Colombia. The United States is definitely pulling the calcium out of Colombia. It might have been good faith. It might have been just the American guy wrote it and they wanted to spread, their cultural influence. That's normal. But also, it's the State Department. Just assume they're up to something at all times.
The State
Because it's the
Department
State
is
fucking Department.
the State Department is just like the U.S. embassies for the most part.
Yes and no, because usually US spies hide in the State Department.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. So the
Like,
State
it
Department
is the
also.
embassies.
I'm
Those
pretty
are
sure that the
fine.
CIA is also under the State Department, if I'm not mistaken.
The CIA has shared funding. They're technically under the State Department, but they also get funding from the Department of Defense.
Yeah, I thought so.
Because the CIA usually provides a lot of information to the Department of Defense on, hey, we might get hit here, which is normal. In normal world land, this is not unusual.
But what I mean is that oftentimes there's oftentimes a lot of backstabbing between like the CIA and the embassy that they work in. There's a lot of completely legitimate, completely above board, completely normal activity that is done by US embassies and other embassies all over the world. Then there's also some fucked up
Of
shit, but like
course.
if they're funding an opera that was composed by an American composer, there's no reason to believe that that was anything suspicious or anything like that. It was just like the State Department has funds to promote American culture abroad, you know?
Look, once, like, this is 7 years ago, through European project, I met the German, I don't know if it's the same ambassador today, the German ambassador to Bulgaria. She wasn't like, hey, mate, you wanna coup the Bulgarian government? We did not talk politics. We talked about my work. Because that's the point of the meeting. Embassies, most of the time, are very innocuous. Hey, we have to have a building here in case one of our citizens hits their head and loses their passport in the vicinity. It's normal to have them, but yeah, of course, most countries hide the spy in the basement of the embassy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the most obvious place to put them because nobody can check the door. But anyway, this is not important. I just wanted to point this article because I think it's very relevant how similar to the worst element of the corrupt system in Bulgaria I've seen has started Musk acting. I'm not going to and Dojo with some bizarre headlines from like Bulgaria's past, but we have seen some crazy bullshit. Let me just tell you that one time a Bulgarian government laid a political assassination of like not exactly a dissident, but a very corrupt person who was also kind of a dissident on a homeless person. We all knew he didn't do it, but corrupt governments do this shit because the homeless person was in the same city as the person that got shot once. That's the level of evidence. Like, that's the burden of evidence we're doing here. This is the same shit. It took me 10 minutes of Googling to figure out how this error happens, and it took me another 3 minutes of Googling to find way more competent people than me explaining how exactly this conclusion is reached. And Elon and his, like, is it 5 or 6 of them now? Elon and his weird children who are, like, fucking eating the government moron by moron, like, can't figure this out. Like, sorry, I am supposedly all evidence shows to me being more competent than them, which, if nothing else, feels wrong.
It's like Doge is like Elon Musk and a little army of shitlers. It's crazy.
Yeah. By the way, incompetent shitlers, I forgot the name of the guy, but one of the like little shitlers, ran a website called Test Was Sexy, which then turned into a revenge porn racism website. That's a fucking hell of a leap in logic. And then he created a Discord server for this, and in that very own Discord, he asked for somebody to commit a DDoS attack on his behalf. And you're thinking, what's the problem here? It requires very basic training to know how to run a DDoS attack. Everybody that has ever studied or worked networks knows how to do it. It takes half an hour to set up a target and a dedicated DDoS attack. You do not need to pay anybody if you know how to write 10 lines of code. There is no way this
Marco
person has
Elaz, or is that Big Balls?
It's Big Balls. I do
Okay.
not know his real name. I don't care to know.
Because like
Content
you
Wanker
also
might
had
be
like,
his real name.
in addition to Big Balls, you have like Marco Elaz, who was like tweeting about eugenics immigration policy and how he was racist before it was cool and how we need to normalize Indian hate, that kind of stuff.
Hey, who hasn't pitched a bit of eugenics in their life, right? Do you guys understand how absurd this is? Like, I feel like I have somehow entered purgatory because logic has been thrown out of the solar system. We are not existing in the same reality as these people. Sorry, normalize Indian hate? How many Indians do you fucking hate? Did they steal your mother? What happened?
And there's another guy who, it might be Big Balls, might be a different one, but who definitely isn't Marco Elez, who also like retweets Nick Fuentes and people like that. Like, it's literally Elon Musk, Nazi saluting Elon Musk, and a bunch of baby Hitlers in Doge running the show there. It's crazy.
I'm sorry, I hereby demand that either we pronounce this thing doge, as the proper English pronunciation would be, or we commit to the French and call it douche. I want to make sure that historians in the future annotate this shit properly. Because fuck this. Also, by the way, officially, technically, it's an acronym inside an acronym. Which feels like an appropriate reason for all these motherfuckers to face the wall already. Why is this? Enough with the abominations. Can we all agree that the sky is blue? Like, it can't be, like, I'm sorry, somebody going, I like eugenics and normalize Indian hate should be disqualifying from you being allowed in public.
Yeah,
Let alone in the government. I wonder why women don't want to fuck them. This is a mystery to me.
I love this sign from the anti-Doge protests.
By the way, just so you guys know, Elon Musk still owns about 20% of the Doge cryptocurrency.
Wait, was that? Let me double check that wasn't. I don't know if people could read that if it was over the.
I was able to see it on stream.
Cool.
So
oh yeah, you're watching the stream, so it's all good.
I have it on the screen so I can like see where to look. Hi, welcome to the Trayan torture experience. My camera is there, but I see you the stream there, so I'm constantly like.
Hey, what's up with the cane in the background? Do you have a leg problem?
I have a chronic issue with one of my legs.
Sorry to hear that.
One day, if you guys want to talk about shitty parenting, I can go into, but about twice a year for about a week, I have walking problems, and that's okay. Also, I'm sorry. This is a gift from my girlfriend. It's a very good cane. It's very sturdy wood. Let's say that I haven't yet, but just in case you need to. In the future, this has other use apart from walking. Canes are very sturdy. I don't know why I'm sharing this information with you. Use it wisely. But I have considered that this is a very good tool for that. Am I breaking TOS too much?
No, I think
Have
that
I
was good. I think that was okay.
have I lost my mind sufficiently? Okay, and the other thing I wanted to talk about is a bit more principled. So while we were watching the video you made on Friday, and I would give that video now on reflection a solid 9 out of 10. I think it's a pretty good video. So
Wait, which one?
for the last one, for
Oh, the
something you
last one.
put
Okay.
up in about like a week and a half, right?
Yeah, I made it
Yeah.
since it's been exactly a week since I started working on it, actually. Yeah.
So I would say pretty good work. We should ship some ADHD medication to you.
Yeah, by the
But
way, everyone in chat right now. There's 15 people watching right now. Any of you who have an Instagram or a TikTok account, if you want to share the last video that I just posted, that's a link to the intro of the new video. If you want to share the video itself, the YouTube video that I'm going to put the link in chat right now for, give me a second.
also, if you want to see more cane-based advice and Elon Musk hate, feel free to like and share to the stream. There is a significantly higher chance I pop up on these than on the normal videos, as you can guess by my general ability to keep my shit together these days. I
If
feel
you-
like I should not be in an edited program.
If you can take that link and post it on any Discord server that you're involved in, on any Reddit subreddit that you're a member of, feel free to do so.
Alright, so let me talk about the other thing we brought up. So while watching the video, my girlfriend was genuinely shocked that basically Elon Musk would take an axe to the Department of Education. As I mentioned this to Stan before, I have a friend who works he's a custodian administrator at a school in Ohio. On Thursday and Friday, they both had like 2 hours blocked out to have like important administrative meetings. I don't know what's come out of those yet, but it doesn't look good already. And my girlfriend was like, how would they remove the Department of Education? Education is something that the country does. And once again, let me bring up the corruption land experience. So let's start a bit far away. The government of Bulgaria, technically 3 completely unrelated governments of Bulgaria, I don't mean different prime ministers, I mean different constitutions, have been building the same highway for 60 years. That's right, there is a highway in Bulgaria that is still being built that is older than 38 countries. And you would ask, why is that a thing you're telling me? Because that highway is shittily built. There is a lot of problems with it and it's still not finished. And everybody I know loves complaining about it. Why? Because it's the government doing a shit job. But that's the thing with governments. You notice them the most when they're doing a shit job. Let me clarify. There isn't a God ordained thing that demands there be a highway there. There isn't a rock that naturally sediments into a highway. You do not notice the government when it's doing its job right. So be very cautious when somebody tells you we are doing a shit job and this is why we're going to remove this part of the government. The government doesn't just do things. The Bulgarian government builds highways because the Bulgarian people really like to burn parliament on a periodic basis, and because the European Union has politely informed the Bulgarian government that there be a highway or we're not going to be in the EU. And because this is the one highway that isn't a EU corridor, this is why it's been built for 60 years. It's just giga corruption. But we only notice it when we're on that highway and we don't realize that there doesn't have to be a highway there. And the same with education. You do not think about the education department until you really, really need it. And it's insanely stupid to dismantle it. I'll tell you, I can even like tell you now what's gonna happen. They're gonna dismantle it. They're gonna give everybody education vouchers when you can go to like charter or private schools. And then like in a couple of years, the education voucher is gonna cost only half of the cost of that education because some rich motherfucker has to cash out on you. the government doesn't just do things. Almost everything the government does either has been forced by popular demand, it's something the government can't afford to stop doing if they want to continue to exist, or has been paid for in blood. Labor laws don't exist out of the goodness of somebody's heart. There used to be battles 100 years ago to get labor laws in place. So, just because the government is doing something badly, do not let it dismantle it. I have no problem if you challenge institutions. Just like Stan mentioned in the Friday stream, I am also a person who's incredibly skeptic of anything a government does. Spending your entire life in one of the most corrupt countries in Europe does this to you. But the thing is, the Bulgarian government, the thing about this, it's still doing a fine job. It's not good. There's a lot of room for improvement. And like people did the math, and about 30% of our budget is being stolen. But lads, there is a highway there. It's in shit condition. It's not finished. 70% of it is there, and I can get to like a third of the country on that highway. It didn't have to be there.
Yeah.
So while I would like the government to be replaced with some people who will probably finish the highway, I will never vote for some motherfucker that says we need to blow up the highway with dynamite. That is insane.
Just to
And
address Ricardo's comment,
Mhm.
do you know that the literacy rate in Gaza is higher than, or maybe it's for the entire Palestinian territories? The literacy rate in Palestine is higher than in Israel, and it's higher than in the United States. Like
Yeah,
it's actually not
and
too
that is
rare to have like better education systems in quote unquote third world countries than in the US.
also. Can I just point out something to you? Because I've been a school psychologist, I'm very familiar with the term functional literacy. There is a difference between you can read and write and you can understand what you're reading.
Hmm.
This is why about 15 years ago the Bulgarian government switched its metrics from literacy to functional literacy. Because well, that's when we joined the EU is when we did it, so 2008. This is because nowadays majority of people can read and write. I genuinely have no idea how people live without being able to do that. I don't know any illiterate people. Oh, hello.
Oh,
A mediating
visitor.
presence has decided to join us.
Sorry.
Somebody who
Fix.
doesn't is not bothered by current events. Anyway, and another thing, and this is not important, but I want to point out that as an argument, education departments and education institutions pay for themselves big time for any
Oh yeah,
government.
absolutely.
I have brought this up before, but I have a relatively fancy education in public school. All the best schools in this country are public. Private schools barely manage to hold on together in Bulgaria. But also, Bulgaria is very brutal to private schools. We just don't respect that shit. The Bulgarian government paid for my education, paid for my textbooks, paid for my lunch up until I turned 14. And then in Bulgarian law, 90% of the fee you pay to university is paid for the government. Currently, I'm in university again. My semester's called to 150 euro a semester. Is how much I'm paying. Several Americans, I think, just got an aneurysm. Also, I get like a train card, but whatever. My point is, you would think, oh, Trajan, the Bulgarian government is spending so much money for you. For the last 5 years, I've worked for an American Israeli company, and then I moved to the current company I work for. Both times through Bulgarian outsources, because I don't trust your motherfuckers' labor laws. So, an American company is sending a check to a Bulgarian company that would then pays taxes on its profits, and then that company pays me salary, and I pay taxes on my income. And oh, so essentially, what happens here is an American company is writing a check straight to the Bulgarian treasury. Once a month, a check just goes to the Bulgarian treasury. I did the math for this stream. Americans have paid $60,000 into the Bulgarian treasury over the time I've been an IT engineer. Do you think it's cost the Bulgarian government $60,000 to educate me? Because I can tell you right now, it didn't. Departments of education, when done right to a high quality, paid for themselves. And in this calculation, we don't account for the fact that I have money that I spend here. So businesses exist because of me and other people like me who can spend money. I don't point out to the fact that like I now have incentive to live here and not in the US because the government offers me public transport and all that shit. Dismantling a department of education can only be an act of greed or evil, or in this case, both.
Yeah.
There is no other reason to do this ever. Not a logical one, at least. And also, finally, if you're so keen on nationalism, I don't want to bother you, but modern education system exists because Napoleon was very committed to France being French. The French education system started under Napoleon specifically to teach everybody French because the Corsicans and the Bretons don't speak French.
Mhm.
And this is why France is one of the countries with the least separatist movements in Europe. Meanwhile, Spain waited 100 years to do that because Franco didn't like it. And I wonder why the Basques are not happy with this arrangement.
That is
I
actually
wonder why
really
the
interesting
Catalans want to leave.
because we were
Because
pointing out when we were doing all the Trump executive orders, we were pointing out the executive order to make sure that the American education system is a patriotic education, like prioritize patriotic education. And it's like, oh, interesting that there is actually like a lot of historical back in the idea of like nationalist countries having patriotic education in that way, like
do you want
or
me to
like
tell you why
the
that's
idea
flawed?
of like a nationally funded education system being for the sake of nationalism is a common thing.
Like, there is a difference between education being used to unify the country and be for nationalism. Let me tell you why this is flawed logic. As a school psychologist, when I started working, like in my first year, I had to work with first graders, people who just started school. And I had my curriculum. I have 4 classes a year with every one of the classes because, like, school psychologists don't really teach, we do different stuff. And I had one class to work on them on interaction and speech, one class to work on them on cooperation, and 2 classes to work on Bulgarian love and patriotism. The first thing that happened is I completely disregarded the curriculum. And I can tell you, no first grader gives a fuck who Vasilevsky is. You can Google who Vasilevsky is. A 7-year-old does not care that Bulgarian George Washington got hanged because it's a 7-year-old. But one of the things that even brought up in chat we've discussed, there is a significant point to national pride in Bulgaria that during World War II we refused to go to war with the Soviet Union and protected our Jews. This is things that matter. And that is a history lesson you learn in 8th grade. You want to teach patriotism, you want to teach like people loving their country, put the achievements of your country at a point where people can understand them. Don't tell them to go like this in front of the flag. It just gets annoying. It's to the point that I don't stand up for the Bulgarian anthem. And I genuinely, factually love Bulgaria. It's just that so many times people have told me to stand for the anthem that I can't be asked to give a fuck. And I know the secret third verse we removed from the song because like it used to involve killing people. So yeah, this is just evil. And evil to steal your money. And it's not going to be the last thing they do. I don't know what they'll do, but I can tell you right now, mark my words, they're just going to make education private and then take your money. Fucking insane. Also,
Yep.
the Secretary of Education is Linda McMahon, which feels like a personal insult.
That's
Because I
also
like
yeah.
wrestling, and this lady is even bad at wrestling. Like she's the person who takes a stunner the worst, and if you know what that means.
I
Like,
forgot about that, yeah.
how the fuck is Linda McMahon roaming the streets? She failed to run for Congress twice, and then just because her husband is friends with like the Donald, she used to be the Secretary of Labor last time. Of Labor. Vince McMahon does not label his wrestlers his employees.
Mhm.
It's just blatantly stupid evil.
Yep, no, it's fucked. It's very
Fucking
fucked.
wankers.
I just realized that my
Anyway,
camera has been
well, you've been staring. Oh yeah, you've been gazing into this. But yeah, that is what I want to talk about. Unless somebody in chat wants to ask any questions or you want to bring up something, that's my piece. I know it wasn't as funny as usual, but my brain is genuinely recalibrating from the JD Vance bullshit. That was such.
yeah, that was something, yeah.
Oh,
I'm
the,
honestly
the,
I'm still
the
stunned by it. Like literally actually literally stunned by it. I cannot think properly after that.
oh, Linda was Secretary of Small Business, not like. Oh my God, it's Olivia.
It's Olivia
Olivia has
Oberg.
reappeared. Oh, guys, prepare. Next stream, we're getting Gilead back. Woo!
Long time no see.
Yeah.
Have you been enjoying the the outright fascism? Okay, wait, this is the big question.
I have so many
Olivia,
questions.
please tell me what you thought of Elon's gesture of how he sent his heart out to the crowd. That was I would like to hear your thoughts on what that was.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting in anticipation. I'm not gonna move until I get an answer. And I'm not taking enjoying America as an answer. I think we're not gonna get the satisfaction. This is unfortunate. This is very unfortunate. I was so hyped.
I think Olivia is like weighing the possibilities between acknowledging it was a Nazi salute. As a Jew, I would think it is bad, but he is autistic. Okay, yes. You're doing apparently doing random Nazi salutes is a symptom of autism. Okay. Yeah. That is one of the arguments of all time. It
Hello.
just shows like the level
I
of
am
bad
back.
faith is
As
I mean,
I've
we
stated
already knew
before.
your level of bad faith was off the charts, but yeah, like there's no surprise there, I guess.
As I've stated before, A, I'm a psychologist, and B, I'm like somewhat autistic, not enough to require medication or treatment. But I've never woken up and been like, damn, Poland is in partition today. It hasn't happened that I suddenly felt like the Sudetenland needs conquering. To quote Stan, Nazism is not a known side effect of fucking autism.
Yeah.
Lots of things are. That ain't. We've studied that motherfucker well in the last 20 years.
But I mean, it's funny because of all the arguments, it was he was just sending his heart out to the crowd, or it wasn't a Nazi salute, it was a Roman salute, or all of those like bullshit ones.
Mm-hmm.
Olivia went with oh yeah, just like autists apparently do Nazi salutes by accident.
I'm sorry, I love Doug Duck's thing in chat. Hitler was autistic, he was just too anti-Semitic to get diagnosed. You know, I'm in it. I'm with that one. You know, one of the rules of psychology, one of the things you learn is never post-mortem diagnose Hitler. It's one of the hard rules. You never do that because, like, you cannot infer what Hitler was thinking. He was a terrible fucking person. I am breaking that. Duck is on point. I am like, this is gonna be my dissertation one. This is my PhD one day. Fucking hell. What a fucking. This is a pointless argument, but just so you know, if you see Alice Vidal doing one of these, check her rocket her, please.
Yeah, I know. I've been pointing that out too. Yeah, the
Stop
Alice
walking with
Vidal doing
another
the heart thing. You know, one of the funniest things that the AfD supporters have been doing is that the slogan "Everything for Germany," in German it's "Alles für Deutschland," is banned in Germany because it was the slogan of the SA, the paramilitary branch of the Nazi Party, and so one of the AfD's leaders has been found guilty of using that slogan on purpose as a dog whistle and was fined for that. So now an unofficial slogan of the AfD among AfD supporters is Alles for Deutschland because Alice Weidel is one of the leaders of the party. So now they just say Alles for Deutschland.
I don't want to bother everybody.
Everything for Deutschland.
But if your dog whistle is blowing out my eardrums, it's not of a dog whistle. Yeah. I can hear it.
But honestly, like I have to say, I'm not even mad because that's kind of genius. It's like, you know, openly Nazi genius, but it's clever. I have to give them props for that.
No, the thing is, this is something that I don't think people think about when it comes to Trump. It's one of the realizations I've come up after the election, because I spent a lot of time thinking, on occasion, he can be really funny. It's just like evil funny, and we don't like, it doesn't feel funny to us because, like, let's be honest, calling coronavirus the Kung Flu is intelligent and creative. It's just fucking horrible because it doesn't matter that it came from China. It matters if we can cure it. And like, you remember when he was like calling Ted Cruz lying Ted? That's a banger line. It's just you, the Donald, you're lying more. And I'm not here to defend Ted Cruz. I hate him too. But,
Wait, let me also show this. I don't know if Olivia Olberg is still in chat or not.
By the way, I wonder if Olivia works for the Anti-Defamation League because that's their thing. Do you think? I saw that. Did I not send you this at one point?
I think I shared it in Discord before you sent it there. But yeah, I don't know if Olivia is still in chat, but I would be curious to know what Olivia thinks of this wonderful AfD flyer.
This is.
By the way, this is.
It doesn't need translation, Olivia. It will be very clear what that file says in a moment.
I was 100% sure that this was fake. But actually, I found someone on Discord shared the PDF, the official PDF from their website. This is actually an AfD flyer.
I am hoping that like a person that lives in Berlin can ship me one, because I asked, but he hasn't been able to actually find one so far.
Olivia, thoughts on that? I'd be curious to know your thoughts, Olivia. Do you need a translation for that? Out of curiosity, do you need me to translate that flyer?
Oh, I can't. My fucking ears are bleeding from the dog whistle. Eh, I see that there's somebody in chat who hasn't seen this before. I am so happy for your soul. Is it supposed to be cherub? I don't know how to pronounce that, but yeah. Yeah. Lovely.
Yes, it's real. Let me show you. Where do I have it? Boom. Okay.
It might be faked by the leftists to defend the AfD.
No.
Olivia,
Look.
we
I
do
have
not
the proof.
need to.
Okay, I have the
They've
proof.
done the defaming for
Look
me.
at the URL that I'm putting here. As you can see, the URL is afd.de. It is the official website of the AfD, PDF from the AfD. Did they take it down? Oh my god, did they take it down?
Oh. Don't worry, Olivia. I have a person in Berlin hunting one of these for me, and I'ma get one. It's going on the window.
Wait, okay, no, they didn't take it down. Okay, it's still here. It's still here.
It's just your German internet shit. Glory to all the Eastern
It's
European
real.
nations with the good fucking internet.
It is real. It is. And look at the awkward placement. Like, this is not the normal placement that you would have this person, like Alice Vital, on. This is very clearly intended to be
She's out
placed.
of frame.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
her head is poking out of the flyer.
Can I put it in chat? Yes, I can put it in chat. Here you go. So you can keep that for yourself. And I'm downloading it for myself as well.
I love the fact that Olivia went with like the leftist is like defaming the AfD. Oh wait, we have another take. No, hold up. I want to read this one. Sorry, Stan, I'm kidnapping this thing. Want to take this one for me. The left
What
is
do you
real.
mean? What
Correct,
proves the mustache
Olivia.
is real?
I
The
am a
mustache is right
leftist.
here. It's the window right here. This is the mustache. The mustache is when transparent, it's overlaid with Alice Vidal's very weird placement on this page so that it aligns with the dark window.
Also, I just now I'm looking at the flyer in more detail. Why are they taking pot shots at the CDU? AfD, aren't you supposed to hate the leftist? You're taking pot shots at your fucking ideological closest people. You're so obviously trying to siphon votes. Fucking, it's even bad campaigning, man. But I'm sorry, the leaflet is it was the leaflet, is it not the left Israel? I'm sorry, I'm not having JD Vance lost something with my brain.
They also said the leftists earlier.
Yeah,
they said, is it real? I'm struggling
AfD.
to believe it's true. It might be faked by the leftists to defame AfD.
How do you mean how we can confirm the mustache is real? You can see it. You can see it's on screen.
Okay.
It's right there.
Now that I've shared the PDF with you, do you still struggle to believe that it's real? Or are you now that you know that it's real, are you going to go, oh, it's just a coincidence. It has nothing to do with, they're not actually dog whistling.
No, I'm sorry. This is if
CDU is literally happy to work with the AfD. They just did work with the AfD, Olivia. You are lying now. Or you're just uninformed. You just don't know. But that was the big news from Germany for the past 2 weeks, is CDU is now working with the AfD.
Mustache was placed by the video creator. Surely. I'm sorry, Stan, I'm sorry. This is for those of you who don't pay attention to crazy people online, because you have normal lives. Recently, a bunch of flat
Look,
earthers
Olivia.
went to Antarctica. No, please, Stan, let me.
Okay.
And tried to capture the sun setting, and then it didn't because they were in fucking Antarctica. And instead of going, damn, we might be wrong about this flat earth shit, they went, no, it must be something else. And they just moved the goalpost. And Olivia's doing the same shit. Sorry, Olivia, fuck off. The goalpost is right there. It's a fucking dog whistle so loud, my eardrums burst.
Let me just
Why are you defending this?
make sure that Olivia cannot continue to deny this. Olivia, look. The window here is the mustache. This is the mustache. It is right here. I press play. The window becomes the mustache. And boom, the window is here on the official PDF on the AfD website right here. It is real. The mustache was not placed there by the video creator. The mustache is in the PDF. The PDF, the link of which I shared to you in chat. You cannot continue to deny this. You either have to pivot to it's a coincidence, or they're just trolling the left, or this is actually fine. You can pivot to anything else, but you cannot say that it's not real.
Get him! Yeah, as Stan is saying this, Olivia says it's a coincidence. Get new material. All of you fucking collaborationist defenders of the right, get new material. You're boring.
Okay, so
At least I
so
put
that's
some
a
effort in my
coincidence.
jokes.
So that is a coincidence. Olivia, what do you think of this campaign poster? Is that a coincidence? Or are they just throwing their heart out to the crowd?
You don't understand, Stan. They're autistic. This
Wait,
campaign poster is there to protect autistic people.
Let me find a better photo, by the way.
Fucking hell. Do you think that eventually right wingers are gonna go with the classic genocide defend if it didn't happen, but if it did, they deserved it?
Yes, I think likely yes. I think Olivia would actually lean into that if
Olivia, how do we feel about the Armenians? Just checking.
if we push long enough, I think Olivia would say exactly what you said right there. Okay, better photo. Campaign poster.
Of course, now we're doing the throw the leftist bit. Can't be that they're Nazis. That'd be like impolite. You know what, Olivia? You're right. They're not Nazis. They don't have the style. They're all dressed like me when I was studying. Like, at least I know how to get myself a shirt now that's like looks fine. They don't look like I came out from under a bridge. Fuck. Alright, but Stan, I'm gonna drop. I don't feel
I'm
like
gonna end stream soon anyway. I just want to
with
finish
Olivia.
this whole thing with Olivia just out of curiosity to
Enjoy,
see how far we can push it.
my brain is in melting mode. The consequences of JD Vance have reached me, and it was a pleasure, everybody. I hope I was mildly entertaining, but let's be honest, nothing can be as funny as the absurdity of JD Vance. There just isn't enough humor on this planet. See ya, everybody.
But I still don't know, Olivia, what you think of this poster. Is your last comment about it's just a bad troll that's gonna stir up the leftists? Is that about this poster? Or is that about the mustache? Both. Okay. Yeah, so you're just bad faith. I'm getting another one in the meantime. Give me a sec. Boom. This, and I have it. Where did I put it? God damn it, I lost it. Ah, there you go. Boom. Open image in new tab. There we go. What do you think of this flyer, Olivia? Do you have any thoughts on this one? Do you know what this means? Yes, it's an anti-pride flyer. Is the triangle shape, does that, as a Jewish person who presumably has some kind of education of what happens to Jewish people, do you know what the upside down triangle stands for, what that means? Nazi concentration camp badge. They were all upside down triangles. Why the hell would a triangle be the shape that you go for to be an anti-LGBT thing? Like, the flag is not a triangle flag, it's a rectangular flag. You could have, like, put a rectangular flag in a big, like, you know, circle, red circle with a red line going across, you know, kind of like the Ghostbusters logo or whatever, like, we're against this thing, no to this thing. You know, there's a lot of graphic design options that you could have chosen for this. They went with the upside down triangle, which has no particular significance unless you know something about the Nazis. Yes, okay. Is Prada a political party? Do you think this was a reference to Prada? Oh, look, there's a badge specific for homosexual people. There's political prisoners, there's Jews, there's homosexuals. That is an interesting graphic design choice. Lots of bad coincidences, you know, really, like, unfortunate. There's just, like, it's really unfortunate that all of these coincidences happen to the same party. Why do you think the AfD would do this if it would give them a bad rep? Because it doesn't give them a bad rep with Nazis. They want the vote from the Nazis. They want Nazis to vote for them because they are a Nazi party. They want support from Nazi people and people who are aligned with Nazis, like you right there in chat. You are the useful idiot. You are the useful idiot. Like, give me a sec. This right here is you. I don't know if you're actually Jewish or if that's just the persona you have online, but if you are actually Jewish, this is you. How much of Germany do you think are Nazis? Well, the percentage of people who vote for the new Nazi party. Which is about 20%. Which, you know, Nazis in 1930 were about 30%. Do you think the Nazis cared about the distinction between culturally Jewish and religious Jewish? Do you think that made a difference to them? Do you think they cared? Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna call it there. Thanks for watching, everyone. Like and share, subscribe to the channel if you want to, and I will see you next weekend. Bye-bye. Get her on call. I'm too tired for that tonight. Maybe one of these days.